Hello, this is CRP speaking to you live, and this is the weekly webinar for Sunday, August 29th, 2021. We're going to be talking about the implications of the vaccine passports. The vaccine passports have been, they promised us that they weren't going to do them, and of course they lied, and now they're coming. And it doesn't seem to be much in the way of any kind of opposition to it. And I'll discuss the opposition in just a little bit. But before anything, as usual, I'd appreciate if you can give me a +1 in the chat to make sure that you guys can hear me properly and see me properly. You should be seeing me on the left-hand side of your screen, and to the right, it should be an orange slide saying implications of the vaccine passport. Give me a +1 if you can hear me and see me properly. I'd appreciate it. So great, fantastic. Thanks so much. So I'm going to close myself out because you guys don't need to see me, yeah. But well, before I get into that, it's been it's been quite the shit show, hasn't it? It's been quite the shit show. And you tell me, chat, I mean, does it feel to you as if everything in the world is sort of like collapsing to some sort of crisis moment? I mean, that's how it feels like to me. Because I can see how the markets, the financial markets, are in chaos. I can see how the geopolitical situation is in chaos. I can see how everything is just turning to shit. And a lot of people say that it's all part of the plan, that it's like the Illuminati or the Rockefellers or the Jews or the Masons or whomever are in control of everything. And it's all part of this dastardly, evil, malevolent plan. And my own thinking is that I wish it were so, but I actually think it's just chaos. I think it's just incompetence, stupidity, weakness, people who have no moral backbone, and no balls. I think that that's basically what's brought us to this situation. So let's have a show of hands. Hit me with a +1 if you think that we are going to some tipping point shit show apocalyptic moment in the near-term future, huh? Give me with a +1, because I, for one, feel that we're going in that direction, So I'll wait for a chat to catch up, and I'll close myself out. Oh, yeah. So, and if you think that everything's going to be wonderful, hit me with a 0. If you think that things are just going to be hunky-dory, that everything is going to somehow magically work itself out and it'll be back to like 2019 as if nothing had happened, hit me with a 0. Hit me with a 0. Okay, I want to listen to any and all perspectives on the situation we've got. Oh, okay, we have a few people here that think that I'm way too black-pilled. Okay, good to know. Yeah, and you guys who hit me with a 0, when the apocalypse comes, when Satan comes up from hell and is smashing his pitchfork and laughing maniacally, as he strides the earth and shoots fire out of his fingertips, I'll tell you guys, I told you so. Okay, enough of my foolishness. Let's get cracking with the implications of the vaccine passport. Okay, now, you got to understand that the vaccine passport, no fooling around, I think is a horrible idea. And I'm going to explain why. Because you always have to be able to explain why something is a bad idea. It's not enough to say, oh, it's a bad idea. You got to explain why. What are the implications of something, okay? Because prima facie, it seems perfectly fine. When you look at it, it basically says, look, if you got the vaccine, we just want to make sure that you have the vaccine so you're not contagious to other people. This seems very reasonable. It seems perfectly fine. Forget about the effectiveness of the vaccine, which that's a completely different subject, and I'm not going to discuss it in this video. I'm going to just assume, for the sake of this video, that the vaccines were perfectly fine, okay? Why are vaccine passports such a bad idea? Well, let me explain. Here we go. Okay, so the first thing that we have to understand is, what are vaccine passports? Very simple. It's the mechanism to prove vaccination status, okay? Now, why would you need to prove it? I mean, like, you go in many countries and you get the vaccine and you get a little card made of paper where the nurse or whoever gave you the injection puts in the data of the injection, the lot number and whatnot, and signs and says, yes, indeed, this person took the vaccine. Uh, but what's the big deal with that? Well, it's because it's not merely a little card that you carry around. It will be on your telephone, on your smartphone, and your smartphone will become where you have this vaccination status, and more importantly, it'll be the only mechanism by which you can prove your vaccination status. At this time, vaccines have been given out willy-nilly. There isn't actually a central register of all the people who have gotten the vaccine. And I suspect if they start rolling out a third booster shot, and certainly by the fourth booster shot, if that comes around, they're going to have some centralized database. It's not simply that you can just roll up to some pharmacy somewhere and get the shot and get the little card with the nurse's signature and you're done. No. What they're going to require is proof of ID proof, a proof of who you are. In some places, you have to show your ID to get the vaccine. They will register you. I would not be surprised if they go so far as to take a picture of you when you get the vaccine. It would be very, very easy. And with facial recognition technology, they could say, this person, John Smith, this is their picture, and they did indeed get the shot administered by this nurse at this location. It would be very, very simple to do. And that is likely what will happen. It's not happened now with the initial rollout in 2021 of the vaccines, but certainly if they do a third booster shot, they will have such a mechanism. They're rolling that out now in Israel. And by the way, in Israel, if you have 2 shots of the vaccine, you are now considered unvaccinated. Not kidding. Look it up. Okay? So they are moving the goalpost as to what is considered vaccinated. And they're certainly going to impose this kind of centralized authority as to who's vaccinated and who's not. Okay? Now, they will give the bearer of the vaccine passport permission to enjoy certain freedoms, such as freedom to travel, freedom of assembly, going to restaurants, hotels, venues, etc. And they will also control other rights. Now, it's very easy to imagine that they can control your right to vote by way of your vaccine passport. They say that, oh, you cannot go to a voting booth without vaccination. And they'll say, well, you can't go to a restaurant without proving your vaccination status. So what about going to a polling place? You shouldn't be able to just show up there without proof of vaccination status. You see what I mean? And this kind of mission creep, which I'll discuss in just a little bit, it'll eke out. But going back to the thing on point, the vaccine passports are going to be in a person's smartphone. Okay. Now, this in and of itself is kind of trivial because most people at this time have smartphones. You'd be surprised. Most people in developing countries in Africa have smartphones because it's just such a convenient technology, such a convenient device. At this point in time, and chat, correct me if I'm wrong, there are more smartphones on the planet than there are people. So yeah, the universal adoption of smartphones is not an onerous thing for people. I mean, to have them get the smartphone, and that's where the vaccine passports will reside, in the person's smartphone. But the vaccine passport will require a valid ID and a valid email address in order to import the proof to the smartphone. Now, this is very important, and this is the basis of everything. Those 2 requirements, a valid ID and a valid email address, that ties you personally to that email address and to that vaccination passport. Now, something that is going separate from the vaccine passports is the issue that a lot of tech companies no longer want people to be anonymously online. Google, for instance, I just got a note saying that they were going to require two-step authentication, not just an email address, but also a phone number. Now, of course, at this time, you can buy a burner phone, so you maintain your anonymity. But with the adoption, the widespread adoption of vaccine passports, which will require an ID, which will require a valid email address, and I would not be surprised would require a specific phone number, it will soon be the mechanism by which online anonymity will be erased. You will not be able to simply show up in a throwaway account on Reddit or show up with a Gmail account and put YouTube videos with an anonymous account or a pseudonymous account. No, that will no longer be possible. You will be tied And that's the aim of this. You have to keep in mind, because a lot of people have been thinking for a long time that they do not want people to be anonymous online. That is, people in authority have been thinking about this for a long time. People both in the tech companies and in the government. So the vaccine passports will be this perfect mechanism where they can make that connection, connecting the person to a phone number, to an email address, see? And in an unbreakable chain. That person has that number. That person has that email address. And they might change the email address. They might change the phone number. But in order to change one or the other, they're going to require to update their information in order to access their accounts on Google, their accounts on Facebook, their accounts on Twitter, their accounts on all of the social media platforms. And see, the vaccine passport allows this to happen. This is necessary for you to understand why tech companies have a motivation to implement the vaccine passports, because it will make their lives easier. Because that way they will be able to ban somebody or control somebody's speech, and they won't have to bother about them trying to evade the ban, because they won't be able to. Lots of people who are banned on Twitter come back with an alt account. But with this mechanism, there will be no more alt accounts. The tech companies will really control your ability to speak. And they will know your first and last name and middle initial and have you tied up to a number, to an email address. You will be known. No more internet anonymity, which is what tech companies want. And this vaccine passport will allow that to happen. That's why tech companies want it. Now, why does the government want it? Oh, that's even more pernicious. You see, with the vaccine passports, people would no longer have natural rights, only rights tied up to their vaccination status. You have to understand the concept of natural rights. This goes back to the Enlightenment. The Enlightenment philosophers, who were anti-monarchist, who were atheists, they wanted to end the notion of divine right. Divine right was what gave a king his right to rule. And they wanted to replace it with the notion of natural rights. Now, of course, this wasn't in like one big fell swoop. It was a process that evolved over decades. One could argue between the mid 1600s and the early 1800s. But this process of natural rights, of the development of natural rights, meant that all men are created equal. That is, no man had a divine right to leadership. And if all men are created equal, they all have equal rights. Now, where are these equal rights derived from? From what's called natural law. Now, natural law is a fudge, okay? In philosophy, it's a famous problem, because there's no way to prove natural rights. There is no such thing as natural law. The fact of the matter is, Darwin proved that there is no such thing as natural law or natural rights. There is only the rights of the strongest to survive, because Darwin proved in his Origin of Species that what happens is that those individuals who are better adapted to their environment survive and procreate. And because they are better adapted, they best their peers. They have more power, i.e. more rights. See, natural rights, the notion of it, the Enlightenment idea of it, on which our entire society is based on, is for all intents and purposes an illusion, because there is no such thing as natural rights. They're just invented. But the point, our society is based on this, that each of us have inalienable rights. We have these rights, that they are God-given. Nobody can take them away from us, except for the vaccine. You see? Because your rights become tied to your vaccination status. In the regime of natural rights, you can travel freely because it's your natural right. You can associate with whomever you want. You can go anywhere you want because it's your natural right. But with vaccine passports, you would no longer have the natural right to travel where you will. You could only travel to places where those who have the vaccination are approved. Your vaccination status gives you rights, not the fact that you are a human being. You, as a human being, no longer have rights. You only have rights insofar as you are vaccinated. Okay? You have to understand this. This is the key concept philosophically of this whole issue. If you don't understand this thing, I would suggest you rewind this part of the broadcast and re-listen to it, because it's very important for you to understand this. Before this notion of the vaccine emerged, everybody has equal rights. With the vaccination status issue, only those who are vaccinated have rights. The others, the unvaccinated, do not have rights. And what's key is, who gives you the vaccination status? The state. You see, natural rights, natural law, those rights are God-given. God gave you the freedom of speech, freedom of movement, freedom of association, freedom of religion, and all the rest of it. But with the issue of vaccination status, it's the government that's giving you your rights by way of giving you the vaccination status. If you are vaccinated properly in the eyes of the state, then you have rights. If you are not vaccinated properly in the eyes of the state, you no longer have rights. This is the key move. And everything else in this broadcast follows from that simple issue. It's so simple, but so devastating. See? Now, the first thing that would happen, quite obviously, is that there would be an aristocracy of the vaccinated. That is, there would be people who would be vaccinated and people who are not. And the people who are vaccinated have rights, have the rights of movement, of association, that the unvaxxed do not have. So you'd automatically create an aristocracy, those who have and those who have not. The vaccine passport would also give license to discriminate against the unvaccinated, of course. Because, see, since they do not have rights, you don't have to worry about violating their rights. Their rights go out the window. You as an individual who are vaccinated, you can do whatever you want to an unvaccinated person. Yeah, of course. Because, see, the whole issue of the vaccination status is that those who are unvaccinated are a danger to those who are vaccinated. And therefore, in the protection of yourself from any danger, you can go as far as you want. For instance, suppose I'm a vaccinated person and I'm at home, and you come to my home, and I allow you to come in thinking that you are vaccinated. But then you tell me, oh, I'm not vaccinated. I can say, danger, 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 pull out my gun and threaten to shoot you or shoot you outright because you are a clear and present danger to me because you are not vaccinated. Now, this scenario might sound absurd to you, but this is the logical extension of this problem, that those who are vaccinated have rights and those who are not vaccinated do not have rights. It's the inevitable conclusion of it. The vaccinated will eventually be able to shoot and kill the unvaccinated. Of course. And you see the logical process. And you're telling me that this is absurd, it's never going to happen. Oh, wait around, okay? Simple as that. Just wait around, okay? Okay, so the government issues the vaccine status, rather. The government, without appeal, will control people's rights simply by its ability to suspend the person's vaccination status. Sure, because, see, you're vaccinated, but I can claim that, for instance, your vaccine or your lot number is no longer valid. I can just make it up. Who are you to tell me otherwise? You can't appeal this process. This process does not have any mechanism of appeal to any outside, independent, unbiased authority. The government unilaterally, the state unilaterally decides who's vaccinated and who's not. And, I can just say that you, John Smith, you listening to me now, or let me go to chat to see. Hit me with a +1 to make sure that everything's copacetic. You, Orosis, or you, Piero San Giorgio, your lot number is not valid anymore. Ergo, you are not vaccinated. Ergo, your vaccination status, your vaccine passport does not work, and therefore you cannot travel, you cannot go to the restaurants, you cannot go to the movies, you cannot do anything. You see? You see how it would work? And you see how pernicious it is? Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Uh, the government has the unilateral control, and they might create some mechanism, but it would be just cosmetic, because of course the mechanism would be controlled by the government. I'm talking about some sort of mechanism to independently investigate whether a person's status is as it says it is. But it would be cosmetic. It would not be an independent branch of government. It would be part of the executive. It would be just window dressing, just to give the illusion that it's fair, but it wouldn't be fair. It would be grossly unfair. The person who is unvaccinated has no status, and the government unilaterally, without the possibility of appeal, decides who's vaccinated and who's not. I told you before at the beginning of it that the Israeli government has just decided that those who have had 2 vaccinations are now unvaccinated. You see how easy they can do it? Just a snap of the fingers, and they decide if you're vaccinated or not. In this case, the Israeli government has decided that everybody who's gotten 2 vaccination shots is no longer vaccinated. Only the people who've gotten the 3rd shot. But what's there to stop them from saying, oh, you know, the people with lot XYZ 1, 2, 3, they are now considered unvaccinated, and therefore I can lock them in their homes and not let them be able to go outside. You see? You see the danger of this. Huh? One of the great beauties of the American Constitution was the separation of powers of the legislation, executive authority, and the judiciary in a system of checks and balances. That was the great genius move of the American Constitution. And I'm not blowing sunshine up the ass of Americans who are listening. I'm saying this sincerely. As anybody who studied political philosophy will tell you, that move of checks and balances was a breathtakingly intelligent stroke of genius, really, that solved centuries, no, millennia of problems, because it made each branch independent of the other and gave each branch supervisory authority over the other. And that created a state that did not ultimately succumb to the temptation to persecute its own citizens, because the different branches of government were so busy persecuting each other and controlling each other and making sure that each other didn't fuck up, that the state would not have the authority or the power to start persecuting and tyrannizing the people. But that's coming to an end now, isn't it? All right. But again, that's for a different webinar. The point here I want to make is that, see, the vaccine passports, they give the government control over your rights, and there's no appeal. You can't go to the judiciary, you see, because this whole issue is strictly bureaucratic, an executive function. And this is the problem, okay? If rights depend on vaccination status, and vaccination status is granted exclusively by the governments, then the state can rescind a person's vaccination status arbitrarily, as I discussed. Thus, the state would control people's rights, as I have discussed. This would create a population enslaved to the state. I mean, think about it. See, all of your rights, whatever you want to do, you can only do them if you're in good with the state. You're a slave to the state. The state owns you. And there's no other way to look at it, okay? Because if you do anything that upsets the state, you lose your rights. And there's no possibility of appeal. If a person goes somewhere the government doesn't want, for instance, to a protest, the government can rescind the rights of travel or movement of the person. See? And here's a key issue. Smartphones. I mean, this is just the beginning of this, okay? Let's look at the beginning of it. Smartphones, as everybody knows, are essentially a tracking device. And for those of you who don't know, a smartphone periodically pings out its location to the nearest cell towers, just to check up on whether it's, so that the cell tower knows that the phone is in its vicinity, so that when a call comes in, the cell phone tower network will know that in this near this particular cell phone tower is where this particular cell phone is, and deliver the call, or deliver the data, be it email or text or whatever. You see, I mean, it's a necessary function of smartphones. But the byproduct of it is, of course, that the smartphone becomes a tracking device. You can tell where you are to within a couple of feet by way of your smartphone. Yeah, and you've probably realized this, using the Google Maps functionality of your phone. So if you go somewhere that the government doesn't want you to go, for instance, a protest, they might use their power to punish you. Or they might say anybody who goes there to this protest is going to lose their vaccination status. And everybody would complain and this and that and the other, but there's no real right to appeal. The government can do it unilaterally. And there's no place to appeal to, so you're fucked. So if you go and protest, you lose your vaccination status because your vaccination status depends on the government. And that would mean that you lose your freedoms, freedom of movement, freedom of association. And remember, in so far I've talked about like going to the fucking restaurants and the movie houses or rock concerts or some shit like that, right? But what about supermarkets? What about gas stations? What if the vaccine passport it won't just be, you can't go to the rock concert. You can't go to any supermarket. And the justification, would be like, there are a lot of people in the supermarkets all crowded together. If you're not vaccinated, you might spread the disease to the other people. Ergo, you don't have the right to go to the supermarket. Or perhaps they rescind that right and they say that you can only go to the supermarket for, an hour, every other day between 9 p.m. and 10 p.m. or something like that. Something absurd like that, something vindictive like that. And you don't think the government would be vindictive? Of course it would be, because the government is made of people, and people are vindictive. People are fucking assholes, and they'll hurt other people just for shits and giggles. So of course they'd do something like that. I mean, to think that they wouldn't is just naive, really. Okay? So anyway, this brings us to the issue of mission creep. The whole point of the vaccine status is to protect people who have been vaccinated from the unvaccinated, supposedly. Let's not get into the issue of whether the vaccines are effective or not. They are not effective, okay? I mean, there's a lot of evidence that has come out that clearly indicates that the vaccines are not effective. They do not prevent you from getting COVID. They do not prevent you from passing it around. They do not ameliorate the symptoms, and they do not improve your chances of surviving COVID or its various variants. Okay? So anybody who says that vaccines work, they don't know what they're talking about. And in a future webinar, on Telegram, quite frankly, I have put up like a lot of information about this. Okay? The vaccines basically don't work. And to claim otherwise is just, you're just fooling yourself. They don't work. Simple as that. But for purposes of this presentation, let's assume that they do. Let's assume that they do. So, based on this issue of vaccination status, see, you are not going to be able to do essential things because there will be inevitable mission creep. The original idea of the vaccines is to keep people from spreading the disease to other people who are vaccinated, presumably with the notion that those who are vaccinated are protected from COVID to an extent, but they can still catch it from those who are unvaccinated, which is kind of like a pretzel kind of twisty, but it doesn't really matter. That's the rationale. Now, because of this, you can't travel without the vaccine passport. You cannot associate in close quarters without the vaccine passport. You cannot go to a restaurant, which is similar to associating in close quarters, without the vaccine passport. But by that rationale, you could prevent people from going to supermarkets. You can prevent people from work opportunities. You can prevent people from housing opportunities. And finally, you can prevent people from having financial services. Sure. I mean, it's all the same rationale, except for the financial services, and I'll get to it in just a second. But the work opportunities, for instance, okay? You want to protect the people so they have to be vaxxed, so therefore you're not going to hire people who are not vaxxed. In a lot of places already this is happening. A lot of employers are having these so-called vaccine mandates, which, by the way, legally speaking and morally speaking, is akin to approving forced sexual encounters between a boss and an underling. And you don't believe me? Think of it in these terms. I'm your boss, right? And I say, I want to have sex with you. I mean, you're a good-looking woman, yeah, or maybe I'm gay. You're a hot-looking guy. Okay. I want to have sex with you. And you're like, what the hell are you talking about? You can't do that. You can't coerce me. You can't coerce me into having sex with you. And I say, well, if you don't have sex with me, then I'll fire you. And you'll be like, no, you can't do that. That's illegal. That's wrong. That's what you'd say, right? If some boss of yours said that they wanted to have sex with you, and that if you didn't have sex with them, that they'd fire you, i.e., they are coercing you to do something that you do not want. And if you don't do it, you're going to get fired. And this interferes with your bodily autonomy, right? And you already see where this is going. It's the same fucking thing with companies mandating vaccination. They are telling you, you have to comply. You have to do what we want. You no longer have bodily autonomy. And if you resist, we will fire you. It's exactly the same as a boss demanding sex from you to maintain your employment. It is the exact same thing, morally, on every level, okay? On every level. And I think a lot of the people who don't see it this way, who are in favor of companies mandating their employees having the vaccine, they're going to rest their argument on saying that, well, a vaccinated person doesn't spread the disease, but they do. And we have proof of that. In the United Kingdom, in Israel, in Iceland, we have the proof. That is no longer at issue, okay? So any kind of coercion of a boss is no different than a boss coercing you into having a sexual encounter and threatening you with loss of employment if you don't. That's the reality of it, okay? No fucking around. Now, the same thing will happen with housing opportunities. And what will happen was that, see, the landlord might say, oh, if you're not vaccinated, I'm not going to rent it to you because, I'm afraid. Or the state might say, no, if you are unvaccinated, you might present a threat to the neighborhood, the area, and so you're not going to be able to rent or buy this property. And by the same token, the government use this and basically say, everybody who is not vaccinated will have to go to a concentration camp. And I can hear you now practically through the screen laughing at me saying, oh, fuck you, CRP. That's never going to fucking happen. It's never going to fucking happen. Bitch, it's happening now in Australia. In Australia, they are setting up these camps. Oh, what the fuck was the name of it? It slips my mind. Oh, I had it on the tip of my tongue. Chat, help me out. Remember last week, these concentration camp, but they call it like wellness facilities or some shit like that. Remember? Oh, come on, help me out, because I can't look it up now because I'll fuck up my setup here with the StreamYards. But you know what I'm talking about, right? Chat, help me out. Help me, please, please, please. It's the concentration camp system in Australia. They're setting it up now. They're setting it up now. So to say, oh, that'll never happen, bitch, it's here now. Yeah. It's something health centers. Yeah. Yeah, but it doesn't matter. I mean, chat, well, you guys know what it is. And if you're interested, just go to the Australia webinar that I put out last week. Webinar number, what was it, 73? Yeah, that's real. That's real. It's happening now. National Resilience Center. Thank you, Marco. I appreciate it. National Resilience Center. God, what a fucking Orwellian name is that, huh? Bitch, man. Anyway, you see my point. The government will have that power to set aside all those unvaccinated into a ghetto of the unvaccinated, say. And why wouldn't you want to be vaccinated? Well, it's perfectly reasonable to be cautious about experimental medicine. It's perfectly reasonable, okay? And you see, there's always the case that, say, for instance, suppose for the sake of argument, that we have an outbreak of Ebola, which is as far as I understand it, one of the deadliest, if not the deadliest diseases in the world. It kills you dead in about 3 days, right? And there is no vaccine for it. But suppose that there were, okay? Would it be legitimate for people to demand a Ebola vaccine passport and all the rest of it? No, it wouldn't. And do you know why? Because you see, if there were such a vaccine that had 100% efficacy against Ebola, and Ebola was, rampant in our society, right? You see, there would be no need for a vaccine passport. There wouldn't. Of course not. Because if we see that it's killing off people left, right, and center, and there is a vaccine that is 100% effective, there's no need to coerce people with a vaccine passport. People will take it willingly, okay? And furthermore, those who do not choose to take it, they'll die off. They'll die off fast enough that you don't need a vaccine passport. So you see the issue here, see? I mean, if you turn the volume all the way up to 11 and come up with a hypothetical case where you have a deadly virus and a vaccine that is 100% effective and zero side effects, like the perfect vaccine against this deadly disease, there is no need for a vaccine passport. Of course not, okay? In fact, there is no need for a vaccine passport, even with the conditions that we currently have. Of course not. Why? Because the mortality rate of this disease is so low. It's relatively higher, but still very small for older people. People over the age of 70 who get a fairly severe case of COVID, not all cases, a severe case, severe enough that it is noticeable that you have to go to the doctor. Roughly 5% of those cases, or less, I believe, they pass away. But the average age of the people who die is actually higher than the average mortality age of the countries in the Western democracy. So it really is a disease that affects older people. And thank goodness that it does. It would be a tragedy if, like the Spanish flu of 1918, it affected young people or children, okay? But no, it affects older people. People under 50, their odds of dying from the disease, assuming that they get it, and it's a serious case, serious enough that it requires some sort of medical attention of some sort, no matter how minor or trivial. It's something like 1 in 1,000. It's trivial, okay? And so, anyway, I'm getting off track. That's not the important thing. The point is, see, a vaccine passport inevitably opens the door for the government to segregate people who are not vaccinated into unvaccinated ghettos, the national resilience centers and shit like that. See? Now, it also gives the excuse for financial services to not be given to those who are unvaccinated as a coercive measure. Sure. See, you have decided that you want everybody to be vaccinated. You want everybody to be compliant. And so you cut off their ability to earn money, to be able to even function in the world, the economy. No credit cards, no debit cards, and we need these cards, okay? And no bank account, so you can't receive a paycheck. I mean, dude, this is a disaster. This is a catastrophe for a person if they are cut off from the financial services industry. And the thing is, see, this happens all the time. And it happens more easily also, too, because so many of the financial services are monopolistic or oligopolistic. For instance, PayPal is the premier online payment method. In fact, it's pretty much the only online payment method, at least in the West. And recently, some good friends of mine at the Duran, which is the YouTube channel that discusses current affairs, geopolitics, and whatnot. And these are very, very sensible men. 2 gentlemen that I appreciate and respect very much. Their wisdom, their insights are remarkable. Their judgment is superb. And just this past Friday, their PayPal was canceled. They do not have PayPal anymore. They just, and for no reason given, just poof, turned off. They think, but they don't really know, that it was because they were highly critical of what was going on in Afghanistan and highly critical of Joseph Biden and Kamala Harris. And that's just exercising free speech, them saying, I don't think that this president is very good, and I think that this vice president is not very good. That's essentially what they said. And because of this, they lost PayPal. And since PayPal is a monopoly practically online, they can't have any kind of e-commerce. This is a big blow to them. It would be a big blow to anybody whose income depends on online activity. So you see the problem here. This is a very, very serious problem. And it happens. It's happening now. Okay, so through the vaccination passport, authorities will be able to match in real life people to their social media for the reasons I explained before. The phone number and the email and the vaccination status and the ID of the person will all be tied up. And so it will be no trick at all to know exactly, for the government to know exactly what a person is saying online, what they are doing in real life. If a person says or does something the government doesn't like, it can rescind that person's vaccination status. Just something that they don't like what happened with the Duran and PayPal. But see, it was just PayPal. They have other options. They have other banking options and whatnot. But what if this decision affected them in all of their online endeavors, in their entire lives? Jen Psaki, the spokesperson for the Biden administration, said outright 2-3 weeks ago that she wanted the tech companies to be in coordination so that if somebody was banned on what platform, they were banned in all of them. And the tech companies duly started creating a database in that regard. Now, that's official White House policy. And that basically means that if you say something, the wrong thing in one platform, you get on some sort of black book and you are banned from all the platforms. And what had happened to the Duran with PayPal would have happened to them on YouTube, on Facebook, on Telegram, because Telegram is independent, but both Google Android and Apple iOS can suppress a channel and not allow it to appear on your Telegram application. There's some workarounds, but they're not easy. They're actually kind of difficult and onerous, okay? And Telegram is supposed to be a free platform, an encrypted platform, and it is. But that just goes to show you that you can still be unpersoned, see? Now, the tech companies, the tech companies can already ban people for saying wrong things. Like Alex Berenson, recently, he's a journalist, a science journalist. He used to work for the New York Times. Now he's independent. And he's always been highly critical of this whole vaccine thing. He's been highly critical of the whole COVID policies because he thinks that they're bullshit. He looks at the data. And he's a science journalist, and he's actually doing his fucking job. And he's doing it very well. And precisely because what he says goes against the narrative, he just got booted from Twitter. And what he said was what I said earlier, that the vaccines, the Pfizer, BioNTech, Moderna, all of them, they don't prevent people from catching COVID. They don't prevent people from spreading COVID. They don't minimize the symptoms of COVID, and they don't increase the likelihood of surviving COVID. And then he went on to say that for all intents and purposes, they are, it's just taking a drug for taking a drug. It doesn't do anything really. Let alone the side effects, which is an accurate assessment of the situation, see? And the very fact that they're rolling out a third shot and potentially a fourth shot after that and booster shots every 5 or 6 months or some shit like that, that's what they're talking at this point. Well, then that means that these fucking vaccines don't fucking work now, don't they? Huh? Because if they did, like I took my polio vaccines when I was a little baby. Right? I don't even remember them. I know that I did because I've seen the documentation about my parents told me, and why would they lie about something like that, right? And here I am, 53 years old, and it's really fucking weird. I've yet to get my polio booster shot. I mean, any day now, I'm going to need that fucking booster shot. You know what I'm saying? I mean, yeah, because booster shots for all these things are like every fucking, you know what I'm saying. You realize how pathetic this is. These vaccines don't work. If you need a booster shot every fucking 5 months or 6 months, it doesn't fucking work. Simple as that. Okay? So he said that, and they deplatformed him. And look, They deplatformed Donald Trump because they didn't fucking like the son of a bitch. And at the time that they deplatformed him, he was the president of the United States of America. So do you think that they'll have any problem deplatforming you? And it's not just going to be deplatforming you on YouTube or Twitter. It'll be on everything online, even so far as your bank accounts. Your bank accounts might be closed off and your money, poof, gone. You see? You see the fucking danger of this shit? Because that's the danger that we have here. Okay? So, the vaccine passports can easily be used by the government to target and harass dissidents. And that's really fucking obvious. But even if a person has no intention of dissenting, even if they're a good little troll, a good little NPC that does everything that the government wants, doing anything against the will of the state, the knowledge that the state's power will act as a powerful force of intimidation. Of course, you're an average Joe, and you consume media, you know, watch a little edgy content here and there, you know, maybe troll 4chan every once in a while, you know, watch some gore video, a little bit of porn, you know, the usual shit, right? But you don't really have any intention of doing shit. You don't have any intention of overthrowing the government or starting like some violent revolution or some shit like that. No, you're just an average Joe, and there's nothing wrong with that, okay? I'm not putting anybody down when I say this. But see, if you know that if you say the wrong fucking thing, you'll get deplatformed, and not just on, you know, like the one platform where you're shit posting, like, you know, on Twitter, you're shit posting and laughing at people and mocking them and sometimes saying, you know, very un-PC things. No, it's not just on fucking Twitter. It's on everything, on Facebook, Instagram, all the social media platforms that you're used to, all the social media platforms that all your friends are connected to. And all of them will discover that you've been deplatformed from all of them. You'll be socially ostracized if you get deplatformed from one of them, if you say the wrong thing in just one fucking site. So what are you going to do after that? You know, hand to heart. Are you going to really speak your mind? Are you really going to put out that edgy joke? No, you're going to keep your mouth shut. Because you'll be like, oh, you know, this, I really want to say this. It's funny, but, you know, ooh, maybe not, you know, maybe I might get into trouble. And so I'll just keep my mouth shut. And, you know, you see some abuse. You see, like, for instance, like a cop kicking the shit out of some guy. But see, because of this whole, you know, arbitrary nature of this bullshit, you know, they're not the right race. See, it's not like a white cop beating the shit out of a black kid. Maybe it's the opposite. Maybe it's a black cop kicking the shit out of a white kid. I mean, really, just taking him to town. And you're like, you see it. Maybe you even film it on your phone. And you're like, oh, I'm not going to post this shit, man. Because it's really despicable what that cop did. And it's not because the cop is black. It's just the cop is a piece of shit, right? I mean, beating up on some kid, you know, that's fucking low, especially if you're a cop, you know. What are you going to do there in that situation? You're not going to show the truth because you're going to be afraid, see? And so people aren't going to know about the abuse going on. And since they don't know that that cop who abused that kid, he'll do it again. And he'll tell other buddies of his on the police force, hey, you know, nobody's going to say fucking shit, you know? I mean, if you beat up a black kid, yeah, you'll get into trouble like that Sherman guy, right? But if you beat anybody else, Asian, Hispanic, white, doesn't fucking matter. Just kick the shit out of them. No problem, man. Nothing's going to happen to you because nobody's going to say fucking shit because they're going to be afraid. And you see what happens? You see the implications? Because you're going to be afraid, justifiably afraid, because you have a whole life and you want to maintain that life. And you see some injustice and you maybe film it, but you're going to be too afraid. And there's going to be no way for you to anonymously post it because anonymity online will be gone because of the vaccine passports, because that's the whole point of the vaccine passports is it's to tie actual people to an actual phone and an actual QR code. That's the point of it. And so no more anonymity for you, buddy. You can't post that video anonymously, and so you're fucked. You saw some terrible injustice, and it will never be righted. You have the video evidence of it. and it will never come to light. And that injustice will endure, and it will only foment more and more injustice. And you don't think that this sort of thing happens? Dude, it happens all the fucking time. Huh? See, everything that I'm describing happened during the 1930s in Germany, just without all the tech, but the same fucking process. This is totalitarianism. This is what it looks like, you know? And I'm telling you right now, man, if you wonder to yourself, you know, would you have stood up to the Nazis in 1930? Well, now you know. Here, it's happening. It's fucking happening right the fuck now. You got to understand that. Okay? Okay. So, finally, this kind of intimidation by the government, if you as a normie are intimidated like this, inevitably you're going to feel resentment. Because at first you're going to be like, oh, you know, be quiet, keep your head down, that kind of thing. But over time, you're just going to feel more and more resentful. And as people become more and more resentful collectively, they start revolting. You know, a little bit here, a little bit there, but gathers steam. And so such a regime, what are they going to do? Well, they're going to become even more repressive. And they're going to become more punitive and more arbitrary in their repression. And that's how Stalin, for instance, kept everybody in line. He would just have people arrested for no reason. It was just to fulfill a quota, just to scare the shit out of people and send them all to, forced labor camps and have them there in the gulags for 10 years, breaking rocks in some Siberian shithole. That's what they did. There's a road in the Far East in Russia, the Magdan Road. And that road, they call it the Road of Bones. It was built by slave labor, okay? Political prisoners, people who had been arrested for no reason. They didn't do anything, okay? They didn't even criticize Stalin a lot of times. They were just normies, or the equivalent of at that time of normies. They got picked up, sent to the gulag for 10 years, shipped off to this shithole in the middle of fucking nowhere in the Far East, and told to build a road. And the road killed off thousands of men, thousands of them. And see, Stalin had to do that because, see, when you abuse a populace, they get resentful. So the only way to fight that resentment is for the state to become even more repressive. And it's a repression spiral. It happens in every fucking state that goes down this path. See, this is the ultimate destination of the vaccine passports, and it doesn't seem so. You think to yourself, no, I mean, it's just it's just a little bit. It's just seeding a little bit. But see, it's like virginity. See, you lose it, and it's gone forever. See, and your virginity, insofar as this issue is concerned, is the early thing that I pointed out, that people have natural rights, but they have been replaced by the state giving you rights by way of vaccination status. The state now controls your rights and gives them to you. See, that's the hymen of this particular metaphor, and sorry to be graphic, but I hope you get the point. See, when you say that a person's natural rights are no longer their own, but they are given out to you by the state, that's it. That's the end of the road. That's when you cease to be a virgin, okay? That's why this shit has to be fought now. Now that you still can. Now that you still have your virginity and the rapist is trying to, wrestle you to the ground and stick it in. Now is the time to be fighting this shit. And you don't agree with this? Okay, so let's talk about it. I'm going to talk about this issue, but I want questions about the vaccine passport, okay? Any question about it, any issue or you're not sure, you don't believe it, you want more details, we'll talk about it. But let's focus it on the vaccine passports, okay? Right now, I'm posting the link to join in the chat, okay? Oh, there's no SA now. There's no Red Guard. Yes, there are. They're called Antifa. Okay. And you saw that woman I posted on my Telegram channel. This woman on video on TikTok, an army woman, right? A soldier. And she was saying that when they declare martial law, she's going to have no trouble shooting American citizens if they don't comply with her orders. So, dude, it's on its way. Okay, now's the time to fight this shit. Okay. Let me bring on some people.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you loud and clear. What's on your mind, man?
I have Denmark in my mind. Have you seen any posts or news lately about Denmark lifting the COVID restrictions?
Yeah, they said that they're going to end them on September 10th. I'll believe it when it happens. Okay. I mean, even the Danes, I don't believe them at all until they've actually done it. Because the problem that's happened, and I'm going to discuss this at some point in another webinar or something, is that the governments in the West, they are the elected representatives of the people, but they have forgotten that. They think that they're some sort of leadership class that doesn't owe any explanation to the people and that they can act arbitrarily. And even in Denmark, they have this arrogance to them, this attitude that they're above the people. And they have forgotten that they are the elected representatives of the people. And they don't want to face that responsibility, or they are so aloof from the people that, yeah. And so I don't believe them because they have lied consistently so many times. And insofar as Denmark is concerned, they say that September 10th is when they're going to rescind all measures. I don't believe it. If it happens, sure, I'll believe it. But I suspect that at some point, either before September 10th or perhaps a couple of weeks after, Denmark is going to say, oh, the cases are up, lock down everybody, your rights, poof, out the window. And I think that, frankly, I think it's a deliberate strategy of yo-yoing people, and they get exhausted and they just give up. I think that that's the strategy, to tell you the truth. I don't think it's a big conspiracy, but I think that that's basically the strategy of giving and then taking away, and giving and taking away, and people just get exhausted. And they're like, okay, fine. That's my thinking. Anything else, Rihard?
And what about Singapore? They also have.
I don't know enough about Singapore to be able to give an intelligent opinion.
Okay, they also have ended the restrictions about the COVID and treated that as, yeah, it's just a flu and that's it.
And do they have vaccine passports?
Right now, I don't know much, but I should look up into it.
Yeah, that's the thing. See, these vaccine passports, man, it's really the thing that has to be fought tooth and nail. Yeah, tooth and nail. But yeah. So anyway, great talking to you, man. Things going good? Okay. Take it easy, Richard. Sharma, how's it going?
It's good, coach. Can you hear me?
No, we can't.
Okay, let me see.
Okay, then fix it and come back to me when you are. Okay?
Yeah.
Steve-O, how's it going?
Hey, Gonzalo, can you hear me?
Yeah, sure. I hear you fine. What's on your mind?
Hey, man. A while ago, I asked you, if you would put together a torrent with all your content in case, you were to die or something. I hope you're working on that. But the point I want to bring up is when and if you get deplatformed or banned on YouTube, I hope you're developing a contingency to where you can get the message out as to where you move to, so we can all collectively go over there in a swift manner. So just something to think about. That's all I really wanted to say.
Yeah, I gotta get myself organized in that regard, because it's getting worse every day, and they're gleeful about banning people. They're just getting their rocks off. It's like a cool thing, Yeah. And so
and what I'm saying is, I would hope that you develop the contingency and you communicate it ahead of time, so we all know where to go, and where there's not, it's like, shit, I can't find them anymore. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I will. Look, at this time, there's the CRP channel and the Gonzalo Lira channel. The Gonzalo Lira channel is inactive, but come this September, well, probably after Labor Day, I'm going to bring it back on active, bring it back online, and put out like a lot of content there. My thinking is that the CRP channel is probably going to get banned first, and the GL channel, like maybe later, I don't know. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. I'm going to have to. I just haven't gotten myself organized in that regard, but I have to get organized. Yeah.
Yeah, but you can't rely on the GL channel because it's still YouTube. Yeah.
Yeah. It's all bullshit. Yeah. Anyway, anything on your mind, Steve?
Not at this time. I may circle back around later, but I just wanted to reiterate, like, please have contingencies in place.
Well, thanks very much. That's very kind of you. Okay. You take it easy, Steve.
You too.
Hey, love to spooge. How's it going?
Hey, Coach. How are you this Sunday?
Pretty good. Can you raise your levels, please? I can hardly hear you.
How about now?
No, I can't hear you.
Is it better now?
No.
Okay, let me put in a headset then. But now.
Yeah, much better. So what's on your mind?
Hey, just to go along with the vaccine passports and everything like that, and I don't know if you heard that the Department of Defense just mandated that all service people have to actually get the vaccine at this point. And they made it pretty shady the way that they rolled it out. Because one, in the military, you do actually have, if a vaccine's not approved, you can actually decline it if it's an experimental. So of course the FDC changed that, and they're saying nope. Now it's
FDA.
Excuse me. Yes,
FDA.
the FDA has now said nope. It's no longer experimental. And
well, actually, it's still experimental because they did a sleight of hand. See, they approved a different vaccine that is not even on the market and is not available to people, and they extended the emergency use authorization letter. Okay. So if you look into the details and the way they put out the letter, it's really confusing, and it's a letter designed to obfuscate that fact. They have not approved it. It's not FDA approved. And on top of that, the schedule, insofar as trials and whatnot, would go into the year, at least from what I understand, the year 2023. And so there's no way that they have FDA approval. It's an administrative sleight of hand. It's bullshit. Okay? So if you're in the military, you can say that no, the FDA has not approved them. It sounds as if they did, and the mainstream media is pushing the narrative that they did. But somebody at the FDA, I suppose, had some scruples and say no, we're not going to do it. But they framed it in such a shady and talking out of both sides of their mouth kind of way that a lot of people in the press, in the mainstream, those pushing the narrative are saying it is approved. It's not approved. It has not been approved, and it can't be approved until at least 2023.
Right. And I mean, I agree because, at the end of the day, if they don't like how a rule is, it seems like they just change the rule and then we all just have to go along with it.
Exactly. That's totalitarian. That's a tyranny. That's a tyranny, and it's all bullshit. Okay. Mm-hmm. Look, the Western democracies are fucked. Okay, it's as simple as that, man. I mean, it used to be fine to be outraged and shit like that, but we're rapidly passing that point that it's pointless to be outraged because nothing is going to fucking change. These fuckers keep on coming at you with their lies and their cheating because they cheat. Okay, and so the issue becomes, if you try to resist in any kind of way, even non-violently, you are severely repressed. You are repressed. You are said to be some sort of terrorist. I mean, look at all the people in the January 6th Capitol riot. Nobody did fucking shit. Nobody got hurt. At least from not anybody, any violence inflicted by the rioters. And these fucking rioters, right? They walked through the Capitol right between the velvet ropes, like very orderly citizens. What kind of a riot is that? It's all.
Well, they were able to reoccupy the building within about 30 minutes. They were able to get back in, no damage.
Yeah, come on. It was all bullshit. It was designed to create the illusion that something had happened. And it's all just lies. And these people just lie all the time. And the thing is, see, if you try to resist legitimately, they'll lie about you. Mm-hmm. And they'll inflict all the power, all the tyrannical power of the state on you. And so, you got to ask yourself, is it worth it? Is it worth sticking around for this shit? I mean, you guys know that I made my choice. And a lot of people, disagree with me and all the rest of it. But See, you have to know when you're not going to win the fight. And see, it's not really the problem of the tyrants in Washington. The problem is that there are so many people who agree, who blindly agree, and who share the same sentiment and the same attitude. And so, what are you going to do? Fight, half the country? No, you got to realize that this is not going to work out. And I know I hate to be so black-pilled about it for my American viewers, and I assume you love to spurge. You're American,
Yes.
but dude, it's just it's over.
So like my point when I was saying about the military is it seems like, and he kind of went a long way to explain it about how, well, if you want, you can speak to a doctor and then you can speak to your higher ups. I mean, at the end of the day, if you don't take the vaccine, they're going to kick you out of the military. So the only people left in the military will be the yes men. And, so therefore all of the independent thinkers will be removed. So it'll just be all these just drones that are willing to, like that lady, I mean, can you pick
woman, the woman who said that she'd shoot people if they declared martial law, that one?
Yep. Saw that video. And she, I mean, you look at her and she's a perfect example of an SJW that's now in the military. I mean, unreal.
And get this, get the irony. Stuart Sullenberg, Scheller, I think the guy's name was. This lieutenant colonel, this Marine lieutenant colonel who posted this video. I don't know if you saw this video. Well, on Telegram, I posted it. He said that he posted a video a few days ago saying that the whole Afghanistan thing was a disaster and that the leadership should show some accountability. Yeah, he got fired that very day.
Yep.
So
like 12.
Yeah. Of this whole shit show in Afghanistan, the one guy who gets fired is the guy asking for some accountability. And the woman saying that when they declare martial law, she's going to shoot Americans. She's perfectly fine. Not even a slap on the wrist.
Mm-hmm.
That's the American military in a nutshell. Are you in the military or have been in the military?
I was, yeah. And, and that's one of those things where if I kind of had a thought exercise of like, what would I do if they were like, hey, you have, because I had to get the anthrax vaccine.
Yep. Yeah.
And they were like, hey, you have to get it. And I'm like, well, I don't really want it, but they were like, nope, you don't really have a choice. So you really, or, you get kicked out of the military. And with this one, it's just like, it seems like they're pushing in a direction where it's either one of two things. They're just seeing how far they can go until they get resistance, or they're just pushing towards, I mean, we can't get any more divided than we are. The people that want the vaccine have taken it. Those that don't haven't and really aren't planning to. And it seems like if they then are going to take away your ability to buy food, your ability to work, take away your lifestyle, I mean, that's pretty much the fundamentals of living in a peaceful society. I mean, it's going to lead to where, okay, you've basically pushed a mass of people into one corner. And again, it's like they are encouraging or they want this showdown.
They want it. They want violence. They want it. Okay? I mean, you have to understand, allowing Antifa to roam in every city, these punitive measures, abusive measures, the whole point is to drive people to explode and use that explosion, that justified explosion of grievance, use it against people to put even more repressive measures. That's the point of it. That's the game plan. Okay? And there is no leader in the opposition who can take up the mantle. And don't give me bullshit about Trump. Trump,
I feel he's a coward. He had choices that he could have done, and he just walked away. It's an argument that I have with quite a few people because I just don't support him anymore. If all these things that he knew and he just didn't release the information, then it's like, okay, well, what did you do then? You stopped the whole thing, right? You stopped it for 4 years, and now we're just back on track to where the original plan was.
Yeah, and not only that is that he was great at diagnosing problems and telling people what they wanted to hear, and what they wanted to hear was somebody who was listening to their grievances. That's what they wanted. But he, all he cared about was making things good with Israel and making sure there was a lot of oil to pump up the economy so that he'd look good. That's all he gave a shit about. And everything else, he just took it up as a PR move, And I mean, I never liked the guy. You know, but okay, that's spilt milk. The point here is that, see, look, honestly, I don't see a way out of this hole, and any kind of effort to resist this will be, even the most passive and peaceful will be turned violent by the Antifa thugs,
Or the police.
or the police, or the military. And the worst part is that you have a substantial fraction of the people. I'd venture to argue, you know, between a third and 2/5 who believe all this bullshit, unquestionably, who have this warped and insane view of reality, and that they think that white supremacists are all around, and that, you know, you and I are just white supremacists, you know, and that we're just evil, you know, that's it. And they don't they follow with this insanity, and they don't have a problem silencing anybody who says anything different. And so it's a shit show. Anyway, anything else on your mind, Love to Spurge?
Yeah, just so what, I guess, you know, like with the trajectory, and it seemed like it's that train that's already gone off the cliff, so it can't be stopped.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think, you know, like within, I know you talked about like the war with China that's coming and these different things, but like internally, I mean, the United States has just been shown to be a giant paper tiger outside of the world. Now, inside, of course, they are crushing anything, you know, they will crush hard any, you know, disruptions to their plan.
Well,
but
yeah, go ahead.
And just where do you think, I mean, you know, like where do you think this all leads? I mean, at one point there will be people that fight back. I mean, again, it may be a small group,
Well,
it may be quite a large group.
I see what you're saying. What's going to happen in the short term? Well, I've been thinking about it a lot. Okay, this whole Afghanistan shit show, it's going to end one way or the other, right?
Right.
And you know, what happens to that asshole fuckstick who gets made fun of at work and makes a fool of himself at work? Well, that asshole fuckstick, right? The you know, all muscle, no brains. He goes home and beats his wife, right?
Right.
That's what's going to happen here. See, the American establishment, they got really embarrassed. I mean, everybody's just fucking mocking them and laughing at them for being such fucking morons, because they were. And it wasn't like a big plan. It's not a big conspiracy. Don't try to figure this out as like a conspiracy shit that they did it on purpose because it's all part of some plan. No. See, because the people who are in charge of this shit show, like Miley and the Secretary of Defense Austin, they got you know, pie on their face. They hate this situation, right? They are not happy at all because they look like fools, right? And so when people have been made to look like fools, what they do is they find the nearest target to attack and abuse so that they feel better about themselves. And so my thinking is that domestic, in the U.S., domestic repression is going to come up in a big way. There's going to be a lot more talk. I mean, once this whole Afghanistan shit show winds down, there's going to be a lot more talk of white supremacists in America, the white supremacists online, you know, shit. I mean, I'm a fucking spick, right? And they're going to say that I'm a white supremacist, you know, and all kinds of bullshit like that. And that's on the way, okay? But to tell you the truth, I know this is left field what I'm about to say, okay? But I put out some videos on my main channel asking people about secondary effects of the, if they've had any secondary effects from the vaccines. You know, I honestly think, and I'm not kidding here, I think that we're going to have a lot of problems with people in the not too distant future, people who have taken the vaccine. Because one of the secondary effects that people have noticed is that brain fog, right? But see, the brain fog, yeah, it's sort of like it hits people, then it like dies down, but then it starts to rise back up. You know, there might be some cognitive decline among people, a lot of people, in the not too distant future. And so I would suggest to you, and I mean to everybody listening, not just you, Love to Spurge, but to everybody listening, to watch very carefully traffic, the traffic when you're driving around. And watch carefully if you see more accidents than usual. Watch carefully if you see people behind the wheel kind of like spacing out, kind of like stuck at a red light and not knowing what to do, and then sort of like snapping out of it and panicking. And notice the people around you who have been vaccinated. See if they're like, on the ball, if they're losing mental acuity. And if you yourself have been vaccinated, I would recommend the following. It works for me. Download the Sudoku game, for your phone. And it has different levels. It has beginning, intermediate, expert, and pick the level that's good for you, and play like 10, 20 games so that you can have an average pace, okay? And note down that average pace. And, periodically play the game again, okay? Over time. I mean, like you get the Sudoku, and I'm being dead serious here, okay? You get the Sudoku. Oh, where did you go? Love to Spooge disappeared. Okay, I didn't kick him. He just disappeared. But I'll bring Piero San Giorgio. I'll get to you in just a second, Piero. But do this. Get the Sudoku program. And on the first day that you get it, play it like 10 times, 20 times, as many as you want. Spend an afternoon. Because you want to play it a lot of times at the same level, be it expert or beginner. Doesn't matter which level you choose, but stick to that level. Play it 10, 20 times until you get kind of good. But more importantly, you've played it enough times that you get a fairly decent average, okay? Because if you play a game 2 times, one might be fairly easy or one might be fairly hard. But if you play like 10 or 20 at a basic level, you'll get a very good average time. And that's what you want. You want to have an average time. And then periodically, every 3 days to 7 days, play it again and see how you compare to your previous score, to that average score that you made, okay? And by the way, when you do this, write down the average score somewhere so that you have it as your baseline and play it periodically. Now, of course, when you play it, don't play it the one game. It would be smarter to play it like 3 games, because it could be that one game you play, you're off, and or you get lucky. And so it's better if you play like 3 games to do this monitoring. I did this when I got sick a few weeks ago. I got sick about a month ago, and I had like this brain fog, and I thought that it was probably COVID. And I play Sudoku, obsessively, and so it's just something, a little nasty habit that I have. And so what happened because of this, what I do is I have an average score. And when I was playing, when I was sick, my average time was twice the usual. Right. And so, and as I got better, my time started to improve back to now where I'm hitting my average rate, just as good as before. But see, this is a really good way to measure cognitive decline. Okay. And it's objective. So long as you play enough iterations of the game. If you've been vaccinated, okay, and I'm dead serious, it could be that one of the side effects is impaired cognitive ability. And you want to find out if you have it and measure it to see if you are declining or improving or you're stationary, okay? It's very important if you've had the vaccine. Not if you've had the disease, because if you had the disease, yeah, you'll be low during the disease, but you'll bounce back. But what's happening is that, see, what people are seeing is what's known as red blood cell stacking, and it's basically what it sounds like. The red blood cells start to stick together in like stacks, and see, blood cells can't go through the capillaries in stacks because the capillaries are so small that they only accept a single red blood cell at a time to go through them. And you see, the capillaries are what feed oxygen to your brain. And so if your cells, your blood cells are stacked, not getting enough oxygen to the brain. And this mental decline is what's happening. And there's also the other possibility, quite apart from the red blood cell stacking, which is the protein spikes that start to line the walls of the capillaries, preventing red blood cells from going through and in fact creating microclotting. And this also deprives the brain of oxygen, okay? And so this is a serious issue. I'm not saying that just for shits and giggles, okay? And I'm not being paranoid either. pay attention to the people around you, of their cognitive ability, and keep a running diary. A running diary would be best, because that way you're not going to be biased, because you'll write down, and over time you'll be able to compare the mental faculties of the people around you and find out if their vaccination status, and keep a running eye on how they're doing cognitively. Okay? I think that you'll be very surprised, and not in a good way, unfortunately. And that's all I have to say about that. Okay, sorry for this big digression, but I thought that you guys ought to know about it. Piero, how's it going?
Hi, good. Hi from Switzerland. Thanks for your content. It's very interesting.
Where are you in Switzerland? I go there pretty often.
I know, but you don't reply to my messages. Anyway, I'm not too far from Zermatt right now, but I'm in Geneva.
Yeah, Geneva's lovely. Yeah.
Well, we seem to be on the same path that you're describing, even in Switzerland. I think it's a global. At least the Western world is on that path of crazy. And you know, I can believe like you that we are. It's not a conspiracy, but the interest groups are really global. And to answer to one of the comments, I thought it was public, but it is private. My girlfriend is Russian, and I go to Moscow often. Also, have business there, and it seems they play along, but they don't really care, and they're actually wait and seeing what's happening in the West, and expecting this whole U.S. and Western Europe to collapse, and they will see what's going to happen, because this thing cannot work. You're well traveled. We probably know some people in common in New York and other places. When you cut freedom, this kind of society, which is tuned for perfection economically, will collapse. There's no point in so we have to wait. We have to hold on. We have to fight it now. We have to stop this progress of control, but it's inevitably going to fail. You know, Soviet Union and Nazi Germany was economic disasters without the technology and without the globalization. Now, this thing cannot work.
No, it's the people in positions of leadership. They want this kind of sick control over everything. You know, it's and the worst part. See, I guess my complaint is not that they want to control everything, but that they're so incompetent in their control. You know, I mean, if they were capable, if they knew what the hell they were doing, well, you know, okay, fine. You know, I mean, these guys want to tyrannize us, but at least they get shit done and it works. But
like Pinochet in your country.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I mean, he was a good old-fashioned dictator. He didn't pretend to be otherwise. He told everybody, "I'm a dictator." You know, but he knew what he was doing. You know, or if he didn't know what he was doing, he would get the people who did know and put them in charge and get them to fix things. Okay, which is what was
simpler times then.
Well, no, I think it's always complicated. What happens is that you need the will. It's at the end of the day, life is simple. You just need the will to do something. And right now, nobody. Piero, I think that at bottom, everybody knows that we're headed to some sort of confrontation, but nobody's really willing to take that first step. It's like when two men are like, they know that they're going to get into a fight, but they are reluctant and they're a little bit nervous, and nobody has thrown the first punch yet. You know what I mean? I think that we're in that stage, but I also think that the potential side effects of the vaccine might throw everything for a loop. So I don't know. We'll have to see. Yeah. Anything else on your mind, Piero?
Check your Patreon Messenger. If I can plug in, I wrote a book on pandemics 5 years ago. CBRN is the title. And what is striking to me,
put it in the chat. Yeah.
Thanks. What is striking, maybe that's my question to you, and then I let you go. Sure. I let others. Now, when I wrote the book, I explained how pandemics are usually managed, which means that the army, the civil protection services, and the hospitals have a plan all together, and all countries have these kind of plans. They're all similar because they are practiced year over year to manage pandemics in the proper way. Yeah. And these plans have been ignored like that.
Yeah, like that. They threw away all this planning that was sensible, and they went. Look, my thinking is twofold. Number one, they wanted to hurt Trump in the United States, and so they wanted to lock down the economy to kill the momentum of the Trump economy, because I think that they thought that the Trump economy was such a strong wave that it would carry him to re-election, and they wanted to cut that. And so they figured a lockdown would cut that. Even just 2 weeks lockdown would cut that. That was number one. And number two, the other thing I think is that they panicked. It's simple as that. They panicked and they were like, what do we do? Even though they had the plans and they'd prepared for precisely this event, they had it right there in front of them, but they panicked. And
it shows.
Both, I beg your pardon, go ahead.
No, it shows that, because it looks like a conspiracy, but I think you and I, we know, I've been to Davos and these World Economic Forum places, we know that these people are so connected that they imitate each other so much, at least in the West, and they all did the same thing at the same time, not because there's a dark conspiracy, at least I think so, but it's because they're like one hive mind on those elites. They have one mind.
Yes. And the reason is very simple. The reason they mimic each other is very, very simple. You see, they have succeeded in life by mimicking their peers. See? Okay, so the young elite, right? How do they succeed? They succeed by doing what their teachers, their professors expect of them, want of them. And they also watch their peers, and they watch the successful peers. So they see their successful peers do something, and because of it, they rise. So they themselves imitate that and do the exact same thing, and they also rise. And so they acquire this mentality of always complying with authority and always imitating their peers if they're not sure of what to do. Because you'll probably notice, Piero, like a lot of hedge funds, they will all make the same bets on the markets. And that way they can tell their clients, it wasn't my fault. I did what everybody else was doing in the market, and my, the strategy failed, but it didn't fail just for me. It failed for everybody. And so it diffuses responsibility because you're mimicking others. And so what you said there, that the leaders, when this happened, they started mimicking one another, exactly right. Because it snapped into a mentality that they have of doing what everybody else is doing. And somebody else, a Swede, said here or in Telegram, I forget where, they explained to me why the Swedes did it a different way. And he explained that in Sweden is so bankrupt because of all the social programs for all the migrants that they couldn't afford to do a lockdown. And so that's why they were willing to keep everything open and not follow what all the other countries are doing. And paradoxically, because of this, they have had the lowest infection rates and the lowest mortality of any of the countries. It's the ultimate irony, but yeah, that's basically it. Yeah.
Great.
Good insight, Piero. Good insight. Yeah. Okay, I'll check your message. Yeah. What happens is that, see, I don't usually check my messages on Patreon, and I'll explain not just to you, but to everybody, because what happens is that, see, the Patreon platform does not allow me to erase messages or delete them. And so all of the messages gather into my phone or into my web browser. And at this point, there are thousands, and there's no way for me to eliminate them. And so it just becomes congested, and it just becomes impossible. And so, and there's the other problem too, is that unfortunately, very fortunately, it's very lucky what I'm about to say. I have over 3,000 subscribers, but I also get, about 50 messages per day. I used to be able to answer them, but it's just too much. It's too overwhelming. Okay. And it's incredibly fortunate, you think about it, it's basically about 1.5% of my subscriber base sends me a message, which is fantastic. It's incredibly flattering, but it's overwhelming. And I can't keep up, I haven't been able to keep up since, I think April of last year. I just couldn't, because I was spending 90 minutes to 2 hours or more sometimes just answering them. And so it just became impossible, but I'll look for your message, Piero, and I'll get back to you. Okay.
Yeah. Ciao.
Take it easy. Let's see. Marcus, how's it going?
Hey,
Marcus,
can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you fine. What's on your mind, man?
Awesome. Yeah, I posted like a very easy question, I think, very direct to the topic. You highlighted like the US, war that you think is upcoming, right, for next year. I can't, or I don't have too many insights on the US side. I can actually like tell you on the Chinese side, it's even worse than what we portrayed in a sense. I mean, like the propaganda they've been pushing out is incredible.
Really?
I'm also not sure if you heard, like, there was like earlier this year, there was like a movement. It's called Tanping, so like laying flat, basically.
Yes, I've heard of that movement.
But actually, I'm not sure like if you like basically like translate it correctly. Like the whole idea was basically like that. Even in China today, right? Like you go to the best universities, you have a really good job, you still cannot afford an apartment actually, which is like the core essence of like the Chinese society, right?
Yeah.
So like a lot of the even bright minds, like they're just starting to like quit in a sense, like going for easier jobs, which obviously is like not in the self-interest of the party, right?
No.
So there's like a massive issue with that right now. But so that's
Where
that.
are you, by the way? Just country.
Right now, Portugal.
Okay, and you're Chinese.
No, I have lived in China, and I've lived in the US a bit. I've lived many places.
So tell me about China. Tell me about the mentality in China right now.
Twofold. I think on the one hand is like they do have very high vaccination rate, right? I mean, they're pushing like their own Sinovac vaccine, right? They even want to make it mandatory now because I think they have like 1 billion people. They want to push it like higher, and I do think that is same like you think like in anticipation of the Olympic Games next year in February. You know, they want to say like, hey, the whole country like is neat and tidy, no COVID, right? Yeah. On the other hand, they're also incredibly restrictive right now. They just upped the immigration quarantine from 14 days to 21 days, which is similar to what Hong Kong has right now. Yeah. So it's incredibly difficult to get in, even for Chinese. And the funny thing is, and this I don't know. It's like I was told by Chinese friends. I didn't confirm because obviously I can't go to China right now. Sure. But it seems that basically if you have had COVID, right, or even the vaccine, apparently some of the tests they're required to go back to China because they require 2 tests. They require a PCR test and a blood test actually to go back. Really? You need to like submit with the Chinese embassy, get a green QR code, and only then you're allowed to board a plane back to China. Really? But anyhow, so like the thing is that apparently those tests, if you have had COVID or even the vaccine, they apparently like do signal sometimes like a positive, but not even just sometimes, apparently like frequently. Yeah. So there's an issue that even Chinese right now, stranded outside China, they actually can't really go back because they can't get the green QR code to go back to China. So there's like the whole issue, like they push the vaccination, that's fine. But economics wise, I think like before like COVID, right, with Trump, with the trade war, lots of industry has been moving to Vietnam, even Mexico, right, like back closer to the US. Basically, like the upwards mobility in a sense has halted. And the way they kind of like overshadow that is obviously like with strong nationalism, right? I mean, that's what's going on. But
well, also there's something else that's going on right now, that there's been an incredible a wave of repression. For instance, they are closing all the foreign language classes.
Yes, that's true.
And they're also cracking down really heavily on all of these tech billionaires in China. They're just really going after. I mean, like Jack Ma is basically under house arrest, assuming he's still alive.
Gone. I mean, I haven't heard about him in some months, but I think sorry, you go.
No, they're doing that across the board. I mean, there's really like a repression going on in China, but I'm really curious as to whether they're becoming like hyper nationalist. I mean, I'm really wondering if they're preparing the people for a war. And that's
so on that front, I mean, like. As I said, I've left China last year during actually like COVID. I was in China when it happened. Like many foreigners who left, we thought we would be back by summer last year, right? Which obviously didn't happen. I mean, last year, like every week something changed globally, right? With the immigration policies. But the main issue is that by now, I mean, and that's what I want to highlight. Basically, like the nationalism that has been rising is like the party has achieved to be synonymous with China as one. So like the Chinese people, right? If you insult like China, or like, if you insult the party, they see it as insulting the country, which is completely different for like many people, right? In many countries, but for them it's the same. And that's obviously like a very emotional thing. So basically, as soon as you like talk, even with friends or my very close friends about like the vaccines, like where it started in Wuhan and stuff, they get hyper aggressive in a sense, you know, because it's very sensitive for them, right? That's the one thing. The other thing, what you mentioned with the English visa, with the English teacher visas and stuff, that actually has been going on pre-COVID already. So like China has been cracking down hard on foreigners, and you also have to understand it's a minuscule percentage of the total population in China, right? Like there's like it's less like maybe a few million at most at any given time, but now it's like likely 1 to 2. The thing is that already last year we were joking with friends who left China. Like, I mean, this is like what you do when you're like, I mean, this is the ideal situation. Like, imagine you want to prepare for war. You actually don't want to have any foreigners in your country, right? Yeah. You just don't want to have them in the country, right? Yeah. And you go.
No. Yeah. And so you think that they're preparing for war?
I mean, before like your video, I wasn't like 100% sure, right? I mean, it's always like it was always like in the back of the mind, like, yeah, they want to go for Taiwan, right? But now it's like the way you laid it out was very structured. I like that, and I can see it. You know, as I said, like on the Chinese side, it's even worse than what you basically like laid down in the video.
Okay.
And on the US side, as I said, I have limited insights, but there has been. I mean, like take Japan, right? Japan, they have a pacifist post Second World War, right? Given like basically the US influence there. But they shouted some propaganda videos, the Chinese, like a few months ago, or actually a few weeks ago, I think it was, where they basically said, look, like the Japanese, you insulted us First World War, Second World War, right? If you like even just send one soldier to like the aid of Taiwan, we literally nuke your country until final surrender. Like you just keep nuking, you know, and like it's like insane, you know, like when you hear that.
Yeah.
But
it is really
so that's
insane.
the one thing. But maybe let's go back to the question I actually want to ask, right? Like very practical to like the topic today. Like the Chinese system is completely remote in terms of like internet. It's completely like autark, right? It's a different system. They have their own credit score system. That's that.
Yeah.
Let's say we roll that out in the West, right? Like the vaccine passports. There's still like two noticeable like I think spheres in this, right? One is Russia, one is India. India, they kind of it's not like a social credit score system, but they did force, right, the population, like I think 1 or 2 years ago, where they banned most of the cash notes, right? They did force like the people to have like an ID on their phone, basically, right? So they did do that. But like, how do you see basically like everything that's like not China, not EU, or like not Western democracies in a sense, right? Because what I'm thinking is like beyond like Ukraine. I mean, I went to Portugal, which is a small country. Like even though you're pretty bearish on like the Western European states, but like Spain, Portugal, like you can live very well, like because the police doesn't really care about you. You know, they care for taxes, but that's it. Like they're very small government in a sense. But like, how do you see like with the interconnectivity of like the tech companies and the IDs, right? That's my question basically. Because even though Google, Facebook, they have an influence in the West and still like with the Indian stuff, but every one of those nations right now is like, and Russia already has achieved, China the same, is trying to like build their own independent splinter net in a sense, right? Like you actually don't have an internet anymore. It's like we don't have connected globally internet anymore. So how do you see it? Like, will that ever be like compatible basically, like that you have like a vaccine ID in the West, like in China, like there's a system to link it, or every country will kind of like independently muddle its way through to like build their own like social credit score system or like vaccine ID system?
I think it'll be by spheres. You know, there'll be the European system, and the European and American or North American system will kind of like overlap and have some compatibility, but there will be like very little, if any, compatibility between the European system and the Russian system, or let alone the American system, the North American system, and the Russian system. It'll be something like that. Whereas the Russian system and the Chinese system, because Russia and China themselves are so closely allied, there'll be like overlap or compatibility somehow. That's how I'm thinking. It'll be like, you know, 1984. That there's Oceania, and what were the other two that I forget? But
I don't know what I mean.
Well,
yeah, I know what I mean. So the goal then is, right, for everyone listening as well, is, I mean, I guess like to have residencies, or at least like some holes like in all of those systems in a sense, right? I mean, there's easy ways you can get, for example, residents in Latin America, right? Like a lot of my friends have been doing it. I myself have been doing it. Panama, right? Until recently, they had a very good program. There used to be easy programs in the southeast of Southeast Asia. Now that has been gone away, but because of COVID. But if you have the means to do it, basically, right? Like it's more valuable to like have different bank accounts in different countries and like residencies in a sense, right?
Well, the smart thing is to live in, if you are relatively well off, you always want to live in a poor country. You know, a poor country that's out of the way, because you can live very well with little money. I mean, your expenses are going to be very small. Like for instance, my life here, you know, with the kids in private school and the best private schools and you know, everything, it cost me, you know, altogether, I don't know, like $3,000 a month, if that. And it's life that if I were living in a large city would be easily 4 times that amount. Okay. And so you want to be living in a poor country. Because look, if you are poor, you want to move to a rich country so that the state will support you.
Very great. You should like link that maybe under this webinar as well. But I can agree with you. That's why I went to Portugal. Many of my friends actually are moving. I mean, I can like what I see is, and this is kind of like sad in a way, and like as well as like encouraging. I have family in Switzerland, Germany, right? I went back over the summer to see it. It's a very big difference. Like with Piero, even though he said like Switzerland's kind of like going the socialist way, that's true. But I feel like it's very beneficial to have 3 like kind of sides. You have the German side, you have the French side, you have the Italian side, right? It's very different from a system that only has A and B, right? Like the US or like many other systems. It's very balancing.
Yeah.
Compared to Germany, it was like insane what's going on there. But basically,
It's
like the young
crazy.
people, like they're going, like, Dubai is like, even though you're not bullish on it, I know, like, but like Dubai, Panama, Singapore, a lot of young people that can go, the remote workers, they go actually to those places because of taxation, freedoms, like these kind of things, right? At the same time, it's like you kind of like leaving like your homeland in a sense, like kind of like to just fall even further, right? And this is like what I see is like encouraging on the way, like the people that can, they go to places that are more free, and they with that, those places become stronger, right? And they become like a shining star in a sense, like a beacon. At the same time, it further like degrades the systems you come from, right? Because like the smart people, like even like the more and more resources, like in talent, like smarts and capital gets drawn out of those systems, right?
Yeah,
so it's kind of like a sad place to be in a sense, or like situation. But
it's extremely sad. Yeah. And so look, bottom line, over the next few years, we're not going to know how things play out. And so you have to be like footloose and fancy free. You have to be willing to go anywhere, because there is not going to be any stability until whatever is coming is over, because we all sense that something big is on the way. And whatever it is, only after it's over will we be able to figure out, okay, only in the aftermath, in the with everything destroyed, only then will we be able to pick a place to move to and start over. Yeah,
very true.
So,
last question on that, because I think it's so relevant. With like residencies and as well as citizenships, right? Like the basic premise of like usually citizenship means, or like sometimes even permanent residency, right? You have like a right to actually return to a place, right? I mean, you talk about Australia, it's not really the case, right? But like in many countries, it is still the case. The thing, obviously, which has happened is state has outsourced the immigration to like airlines, which are private companies, which can refuse you like the connection basically to your home country, right? Because that's not the state.
Yes.
But like, how do you see this like developing in like the Western democracies? Let's say like Europe, right? You said like you do like think like a lockdown might come between the different countries again, like we had last year, right? The thing is, though, I mean, like if you have different citizenships between those countries, theoretically and like by law still enforceable in terms of in front of the judiciary, right, in front of courts, you should be actually able to like at least move between the places you have citizenship on the one hand and permanent residency on the other hand, right? Or you still see that actually like even with the COVID IDs and stuff like that will actually go out the window? Because that'll be a massive change, right? I mean, that'll be like even the most fundamental concept of like a nation state, like citizenship, right? That will be like.
Well, as a practical matter, it's already gone. Okay, because if, like, for instance, I was stuck in Holland, in the Netherlands, starting really when I could leave, when I could really leave, was May of 2020. And I was stuck there until December, when I finally figured, screw it, I'll just ride my motorcycle. Because the flights kept getting canceled, and the airlines were de facto preventing me from going. And so once I decided, I'm just going to ride my bike, and that'll be that. That was the only way to really, in a practical sense, to leave, because no airline was going. Or I'd buy the ticket. Look, I lost like 3 tickets, like I'd buy a ticket and they'd cancel it because the rules changed, this and that, the other, So look, the pre-2020 life is not going to come back, and it might never come back. Okay. And so that's why I've told people, and I'll repeat it again, and I'm like totally black. I have to go and turn on the lights, but you got to understand that in the next 6 months, at the very latest, you have to be where you plan to be for the next 5 years. Because I really do think that whatever happens, war, economic chaos, more pandemic bullshit, all of which could happen simultaneously, by the way, it's going to prevent you from moving back to wherever you are. So if
by air, right? Because by land, also by land?
Oh, no, by land, it's easier because it's so fewer people right now. But later, when there are a lot of people who decide that they want to get out of some fucking country for whatever reason, then it's going to be impossible. Then they're going to have a hard lockdown on the land borders. And the thing is, it was weird because this past summer, I was planning on doing this round Eastern European motorcycle trip, but I kept postponing it for different reasons. It never happened. And I wanted to ride from Kharkov to Moscow and St. Petersburg, and then around Finland and the Baltic states, and then down through Belarus and back to Kiev and back to Kharkov, right? It was going to be like 3,000, 4,000 kilometers. But I couldn't, and thank goodness, because all of a sudden I realized by my itinerary I would have been stuck in Belarus because the Belarusians closed the borders with everybody except Russia. And so, it would have been a fucking nightmare, And so I think that that's kind of like the future, that they're just going to start closing all the borders. And so
you
that's
can't
why
get to the place, but you still have the right to basically go into, right? Because
yes, exactly.
I mean, like imagine now you're a US citizen, like whatever, right? Like, let's say you stand at the Mexican border, they can't refuse you entry, right? I mean, and I mean, if they do, like, then it's really getting like, I mean, insane, which is already is, but like, I mean, then even more so, right?
So that's why I'm telling everybody, if you, wherever you are in the next 6 months, that's where you're probably going to be for the next 5 to 10 years. So you better pick your place now. And if you don't want to be where you are now, move now, because later there isn't going to be the chance.
Well, then going off for Xiaomi, then guys, go to a place you can at least get a benefit, like be it taxes, citizenship, whatever. Use the time productively, right?
Yeah. So anyway, Marcus,
Thanks,
great
Coach.
talking to you. Take it easy. Show me, hang on a second. Show me, let me go and turn on the lights here because I can't see a damn thing. Hang on.
Sure, no problem.
Oh shit. My browser has lost connection with my camera, and so you guys can't see my I went to turn on the lights really so that you guys could see me, because I was like all like black, and so anyway, Shimi, how's it going?
It's going fine, thanks. Do you hear me well?
Yeah, I hear you fine. What's on your mind, my man?
All right. Well, I do have some things on my mind right now. Yesterday was my birthday.
Hey,
and
congratulations.
I decided to treat myself. Yeah, thanks.
How old did you turn?
I turned 26.
Congratulations.
Yeah, so I've been following you for the last 3 years, so might as well say that I'm 3 years old. So
thanks very much. That's very kind of you.
I was born in Kazakhstan and I still live here to this day.
Yeah.
And the vaccine passport situation, I was very curious if there is going to be any place in the world, the civilized part of the world at least, where it's going to be safe, because not so long ago, I got the information that they might not even let people into the airport without the proper vaccine.
Yeah.
I mean the vaccine
well,
passport.
Look,
because
this is an issue, and look, I just want to emphasize something so that everybody's really clear. See, my policy has always been that those people who decide that they're going to get a fake vaccine, certificate, and therefore a fake vaccine passport, those people are really scumbags. Okay, and I don't want anything to do with them, and I reject them totally. And I know that a lot of these scumbags, what they do is they'll go to some doctor that they know, perhaps in like an ethnic neighborhood in the big city where they live in and whatnot, and pay them, sometimes as little as 50 euros or maybe just 100 euros or dollars to pretend to give them the vaccine, but not actually give them the vaccine, and then give them a certificate that they've taken the vaccine. I think that those people are real scumbags, and I want nothing to do with them. And I think that you, Xiaomi, should stay away from such people and stay away from such doctors, because they're bad, they're breaking the law, they're really fucking evil. And because by doing this, you know what they do? They get a fake vaccine passport. And there's no way to verify whether they have actually taken the vaccine or not. All they have going is the vaccine passport. And if it's duly signed, then who's to ever know that they faked it, So don't ever do that. I think that that's wrong. I think that that's immoral, evil, and despicable. Okay, Xiaomi?
Yeah, I absolutely agree, but it's not what I was talking about.
Oh, okay.
We have a QR code thing, like a app on the cell phone, and you're not allowed to get into any buildings, like I don't know, like any kind of center where people would be. unless you're either vaccinated, which is going to give you green color or whatever,
Yep.
or you have a blue one, which is basically unknown, like no information about you. You haven't been to the hospital and you haven't been vaccinated.
Yeah. So
or it's a red one, which means that you're in trouble.
well, that
Yeah,
pretty
so
much proves that this vaccine passport shit limits your rights, and your rights become given to you by the state. See, that's what's
oh
going
yeah,
on.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I was when I just heard the information that you've been that you've been uploading, I was looking for um same clues. Like I was waiting for same things to start in my country, because we're kind of like we're not as liberal as the West,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe we're not as fast as the West. But I was waiting for it, and then when they said that they might force people to be vaccinated even for the internal uh, flights, I kind of realized that now this is happening. Okay,
Yeah.
that might be it.
Yeah. This shit's
Yeah,
happening. Okay. So don't pretend otherwise. You gotta understand that this is on its way, and the only thing that will change this is if in the short term these vaccines become completely discredited, or the discreditation is great enough that nobody really wants to take them anymore. Okay. Now, the fact that people are pushing the third booster shot, that is very demoralizing to a lot of people who've taken the 2 shots already, because they're like,
oh
well,
yeah,
what the fuck? I thought that, take the 2 shots and that's it. I'm done. And, Emmanuel Macron was dumb enough to say that, oh, no, he didn't say anything. Sorry, that was my mistake, because I was thinking that the French vaccination certificate has room for up to 8 injections, okay, on the little piece of paper. And, people are saying, holy shit, we might have to have this shit all the time, every year. And people are not really down with that, not at all. So, we're going to see how this goes. But right now just to understand that this vaccination passport shit, it's on its way. We got to deal with it. It's fucking ugly, and there's nothing to be done about it.
yeah,
So
that's pretty ugly.
yeah. So anyway, anything else on your mind? Show me.
Oh yeah, I wanted to ask you 2 more questions, if you don't mind.
Sure.
The first one is about the brain fog, which you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, a lot
So
of people who've suffered, a lot of people who have taken the injection have felt like this brain fog, that they can't focus, that they're kind of like, like stupid, Yeah. And yeah. What about it?
I wanted to ask if there is anything that would help with that, because I've gone through the virus itself a year ago,
Yep.
and I still suffer from that, because I feel myself to a great degree, affected by it.
Yeah. Well, what happens is that you have to understand what the brain fog basically is. It's a lack of oxygen to different parts of your brain. And so when you're suffering that lack of oxygen, some of your neurons die. Okay. And if it's severe enough, this fogginess is kind of like permanent. And so what you have to do is, and this is something that anybody who suffered any kind of traumatic brain injury can tell you, you have to develop new neural pathways. And the way you do that is that you exercise your brain, with different kind of brain teasers, games that demand mental activity. And you have to work at it like you would work out, physically. You have to do it every day for X amount of time every day. What happens is that the brain fogginess will start to lift, because other neurons that have not been active or have not been in use as much will start to become more active and replace the damaged ones. Not replace them in the literal sense, but in the sense of becoming more active in your thinking. Because you have to understand, there are some cells in your body that do regenerate and others that do not. Brain tissue and heart tissue, when they are damaged, you only get scar tissue. Liver tissue, for instance, can regenerate. That's why, for instance, you can give up a big chunk of your liver as to transplant to somebody else, and your own liver will regrow, kind of like the tail of a lizard. You know what I mean? But your brain will not do that, and so you have to find new pathways. And the best way to do that, and this is common with people who've suffered traumatic brain injury, is to work on different mental activities repetitively that demand greater mental activity, and that's how you do it.
Yeah,
Just
I
like
see.
just like working out physically. Okay.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
So the last question is, since I live in Kazakhstan and all the CIS countries are pretty much similar, so you had a video about moving to Ukraine or Eastern European country,
Yeah.
and you also had a video about moving to China.
I did a video about
So
moving to China. Yeah, now that's off the table. I don't think I did one of moving to China. I knew I did
well,
one
I'm
about
not,
going to Africa.
I think it was about dating Chinese women, something like that.
I don't know. I mean, I
Because
don't
they're
think
not
so.
spoiled.
No, I don't think I did such a thing. Hang on, let me check real quick. But I'm almost positive that I didn't, because I don't have that much experience with dating Asian chicks. I've dated a couple. They were a lot of fun, but no, I haven't done anything with Chinese girls, of dating Chinese girls. So I mean, I'm looking at my channel now. So no, I haven't. You know, I'm sorry. I mean, both my Patreon channel and my CRP channel. No, I haven't. You know, so I don't know.
Yeah, but anyways, the question is that since Kazakhstan is very culturally similar to these countries,
Yeah.
why would you skip this country?
Why would I what? I'm sorry.
Skip this country because it could also be a good place to move.
I don't know it enough, so that's why I didn't give an opinion. You know. But my fundamental thesis remains that, you know, the best thing to do is, if you are relatively well off and you can work independent of geography, you want to be moving to a poorer country, because your income, your dollar, your euro will go further in a poor country, you know, than in a rich one. Like, for instance, my office space, I rent. I've said this before. I rent 600 square feet, 60 square meters, and I pay less than $500 a month, with including services, including internet and heat and electricity. So it's very reasonable, you know. So yeah, that's what you want to be doing. Okay. Anyway, show me. Thanks very much, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
You take care.
Yeah, have a good one.
All the best. Hannes, how's it going?
Yeah, can you hear me properly?
Yeah, I hear you fine. What's on your mind, man?
Okay. Yeah, first of all, happy birthday to Shomi. He was born on the exact day when I was, ironically.
Okay. How old are you?
I'm also 26, so we just.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah, you guys should get together. You know, it's like Midnight's Children. You know, Midnight's Children is a novel about a bunch of people who were born at the same date in India. But anyway, what's on your mind, man?
Yeah, I have 3 questions actually.
Go ahead.
The first one is related to Russia. 2 days ago, I Skyped with a friend from St. Petersburg, and she told me that
is she hot?
at a university. Oh yeah.
Okay. Okay. Way to go.
You can imagine it's right now hard to see her. And the thing is, she told me that at her university, there were some cases where some students didn't get their diploma because they weren't vaccinated, and you have all sorts of companies that like softly force their employees to get vaccinated. Otherwise, they have to be in home office or what have you. And I was a little bit shocked to hear this, that in Russia you seem to have the same development like here in the West. I'm from Germany, and I'm just curious how you think the situation in Russia will develop. Because
what happened just now, just today or yesterday, I believe actually, Vladimir Putin said that it would become law that no company or educational establishment could force people to take the vaccine. In vaccine, they do the Sputnik 5, which, as I understand it, but you guys will have to confirm this, so I'm not sure. I could be wrong about this, but as I understand it, I think that the Sputnik 5 vaccine is more like a traditional vaccine, that it takes a part of the actual virus and not mRNA technology, but I'm not sure. So you're going to have to check that out for yourself. But anyway, Putin said, like I said, I'm almost positive it was yesterday, but I mean, you just look it up, that he passed a law making it explicit, making it illegal to force anybody to take the vaccine against their will, be it a business or a school. So I think that might have changed. Okay. And it could be that they've changed the law, but the bureaucrats have not caught up to speed on this change. But it was like a big deal, and so and I know that this for a fact. It's not like I think or no. I know this for a fact. Look it up, okay? Look it up in the news. Okay, and I do believe that Vladimir Putin probably did it to sort of like flip the bird to the West, because so many Western companies and governments are insisting that everybody get the jab. So it could be like a basically a troll. I mean, Vladimir Putin is one of the biggest trolls in the world. You know what I mean? So yeah, it could be that. Yeah. So what's your next question, man?
The next question is, assuming that the situation will develop like you mentioned earlier, what do you think would be more useful? Staying in the country where you live, where you were born, where you speak the language, where you have your connections and all sorts of things, or fleeing to a country where you are more free, but where you have no great network, let's say, maybe you don't speak the language very good or not at all. Because I'm a geologist, so I can work pretty much anywhere, and I'm close to finishing my studies. I'm focusing to go to Sweden because it's not so far away and you actually can go there. But let's say I would go to maybe Latin America because I speak some Spanish, and then everything gets shut down, like you say. But then you're ending up in a country where maybe you are more free than I would be in, let's say, Germany or Sweden, but I don't know anyone where. Okay, I speak the language, but I have no real connections. Whereas if I would stay in Germany, I know all sorts of people here. I'm just have a better network. What do you think would make some more sense?
That's an issue that each person has to decide for themselves. Unfortunately, there is no simple algorithm. There's no simple way to an answer, and I certainly can't give you that answer either, because only you would know the people that you know, the social environment that you move in Germany. How helpful that social circle would be into the future, and would it be able to shield you and give you collective protection against some of the abuses of your government. You see what I mean? And so you have to balance that compared to, like, say, I mean, if I were you, I would also, you've been talking about Sweden, which makes sense. But Latin America, I don't know what kind of job opportunities you have there. I'm assuming like in Chile. I mean, there's shitloads of mining going on in Chile, but you should be considering like Russia, definitely, and the Central Asian republics as well.
Yeah, the thing with Russia is I don't speak the language very, very well. I have some connections, but yeah, I don't know if it's really possible if you come directly from the university and you don't have much work experience to find a good job in Russia, because in the end, if you earn like your 500 rubles in Russia working somewhere in Siberia, really that's also not so great. But I keep an eye on Russia. Maybe I learn the language. It seems to be very useful.
But my thinking is, see, it's going to be almost impossible to travel to change where you live over the next 5 to 10 years, my thinking. And so that's why I'm thinking that wherever you are in 6 months' time is probably going to be where you're going to be staying put for the next 5 years. Because like I've said before, and Marcus was kind of like agreed with me, if there's going to be a war between the United States and China, it'll happen after the Beijing Olympics in February. And if that happens, then the whole world is going to be paralyzed until that plays out, whatever way it goes. And I also suspect that if there is a war between the United States and China in February, March, April, May of next year. I mean, the spring of next year. What will happen is that a lot of other simmering tensions and a lot of other confrontations among nations will break out into the open. I'm thinking specifically India and Pakistan. And so it could be like a whole shit show globally, you know?
Yeah, I think so too. That's very likely that everyone sees their chance now if America is distracted. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, everybody feels that America is weak. Everybody feels America is distracted. And so its allies feel nervous and its opponents feel this might be the chance to get what they want. And, you know, it could be that we fall into a global war, or let me phrase this. Not one war, but a whole series of localized conflagrations just across the globe, all kinds of long simmering tensions. Because you understand too that the United States acted like the world's policeman for a long time, and a lot of simmering tensions and ancient hatreds were kind of like submerged because the Americans were, you know, the global policeman. But now that everybody feels that the global policeman is too old and decrepit to do anything, they might take this opportunity, if there's a big war between China and the US, to settle their own scores, like India and Pakistan, like Argentina and Chile, and like Argentina and Brazil, like all kinds of places, you know, all kinds of countries like North Korea and South Korea. You know, God knows what will happen. So my thinking is that if a war between the US and China breaks out, a lot of other secondary wars are also going to break out at that time or shortly thereafter. And it's going to be very, very difficult to move from wherever you are, because all the governments around the world will want to lock down everything tight, you know, have a firm grip on everything going on. Because with these wars also, there'll be a lot of migrants, a lot of chaos. And so the governments will want to lock everything down. And therefore, you won't be able to move. I mean, that's what I'm thinking. Now, chat, you guys can agree with me or not, but it's just this vibe I get, you know? And I know it sounds so sketchy to say, oh, it's a vibe, dude, you know, but it's what I think, you know? Chat, if you are on board with what I'm thinking, hit a +1. And if you think I'm totally wrong, you hit a +0. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's highly likely that if you have like a series of wars going on, that they just shut down the civil air traffic. Makes a lot of sense, just for safety reasons at least. Yeah. But the thing then is, let's say, take my example, I go to Russia, I don't speak Russian very good. I don't have a real visa or something, and it's right now close to impossible to get one. I could get one because I know some people, but it would be just temporarily. So let's say in the worst case, you are a German in Russia. You have a series of wars going on. You can't go back to Germany. You have no, let's say, real right to stay in Russia because your visa runs out sooner or later. And then I think it's very hard to get a real job opportunity and, let's say, surviving basically. So I would say it makes more sense to stay in a country where you were born or where you lived, where you have your connections, or in a country very close by where you could go to your home country.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Probably stay put, you know? Yeah, because if you're not confident, then stay put, you know? That would be my thinking. Hey, okay, Hannes, great talking to you. Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much. Bye.
Bye. Hey, Brandon, how's it going?
Coach, it's amazing to talk to you. It's going well.
Oh, thank you so much.
And it's funny that you and Hannes. Oh, I'm sorry. It's so funny that you and Hannes were just talking about the difference between whether you should stay put or head elsewhere. Solution-wise, I've been thinking for the last several months, and I've been working on it, building up, that developing a strong local community life is kind of like a white blood cell resistance to the vaccine passport social control sort of thing. So I've been actually just legitimately walking around introducing myself to my neighbors, saying, hello, I'm sorry, I know I have never met you before, but I live right down the way, and I think it's crucial that we know each other. But I was I was calling
How's
in
that?
to bring
How's
that
that?
up. Just
How's that going, by the way?
honestly, amazingly. I understand that I may be blessed to live in somewhat rural Appalachia, so there's a kind of common mindset around here, but
Sure.
I've been out of likely 20 houses that I've been to, only a couple people have been somewhat standoffish, and I attribute that just to the surprise of a 25-year-old guy showing up out of the blue to introduce himself. But
Sure.
I've made new friends out of walking around. We're like, for instance, one of my friends, he has chickens, and in this area, it's against the municipal code to have chickens, but he has connections locally and politically where he was able to work through all of the loopholes and basically say, listen, I'll primary you out of your job if you make me get rid of my chickens. Like,
Huh?
just the local network has been amazing. And
Yeah,
so
and there's
I'm
something
sorry
else you
this
got
isn't
going.
kind of
No, you got something else going for you. Is that people who aren't Americans don't realize this, and Americans don't realize this. That American people are incredibly friendly. That's one of the things that is remarkable. And a lot of foreigners, when they move to America, that's the thing that strikes them the most. And you guys listening in chat who have never been to America, or who've only been to like New York and like the touristy places. Americans in general are so friendly. And if you just show up and just smile and say, introduce yourself and just shake their hands, you'll more likely than not wind up with a friend. It's that kind of people. They're lovely people. Yeah. So anyway, Brandon, you were saying?
Absolutely. Oh, I'm sorry, I don't necessarily have this directly guided, but I was just thinking this is so crucial in the sense of Hannes you had brought up when speaking with Hannes, well, can your local network protect you from abuses of the government? Perhaps not. But what can we really do? My big mission is, I think the local connection really solves a lot of the isolation and mental health problems that we have.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And my main mission is if I can secure 2 eyesights away from my house in terms of even for just now recognizing people on a face-to-face basis, then in any sort of chaotic situation, rather than seeing a neighbor walk into my yard and being like, hey, get the hell away from me, this is crazy. It's like, hey, Steve, this is crazy, get the hell over here.
Yeah, exactly.
So
yeah. And so building those kinds of community relationships, and I would argue that this should be for everybody, not just Americans, for everybody, that you should find out who your neighbors are. Because if the supply chains start to get cut and there are fewer goods and services around, you might need your neighbor more than you ever have before in your life. So it would be smart to be laying the groundwork, if only to just introduce yourself and say, hi, I'm your neighbor, and that kind of thing like Brandon is doing. I fully endorse that. I think it's smart because in a period of chaos, and especially look, I mean, can you guys, any of you guys believe what's happened over the last 18 months? Nobody can. It's insane, and it could get a hell of a lot worse. So it would be smart to do what Brandon's doing. Yeah. So anyway, what else is on your mind, Brandon?
Well, in terms of the vaccine passport, I wish I had questions for you, but I agree and have seen this as well. And so I just really kind of wanted to present to the group a somewhat practical solution of speaking to your neighbors at the very least, because like I understand all of our schedules, we're plugged into the system as it is.
Yeah.
And so it's difficult to align your schedule to a community life that has been gone for 50 years. But like we both just said, in that chaotic event, well then if we just at least recognize each other, that chaotic event itself will be the glue that pulls everyone together.
Yeah.
So
yeah, let's hope so. Yeah. So anyway, Brandon, great talking to you. Okay. You take care.
Likewise, Coach. Thank you for your mentorship, sir, and be well.
Oh, no, my pleasure. Thank you so much. That's very kind of you to say. Thank you. Sharma, how's it going? Sharma, you there?
Wait, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I hear you fine. How's it going?
Jesus Christ! Just give me a sec, Coach. I'll get back because I cannot hear you now. I'm sure you can hear me, but I cannot hear you.
Okay, no problem. Robert, are you there? Robert?
Yes, Coach. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you fine. How's it going, man?
Doing well. How are you?
All right. A little bit just tired from different shit, actually. Yeah, it's been quite a ride as of late, you know. Yeah. But anyway, what's on your mind?
Yeah, no, I hope you're feeling better from your previous illness. I just wanted to kind of check in and kind of get a little bit more information about the timeline of the rollout for the vaccine passport, kind of what your thoughts about the timeline is, and then most importantly, what the response is going to be to, particularly in the United States, to some of the more authoritarian and harsh measures that are most likely going to be implemented.
Well, you know, it pains me to say this, but you know, I don't think that I think the vaccine passports will be implemented, and I think also that people's resistance to them, and I've seen like videos. Yesterday, there were big protests in Berlin, London, Paris. I mean, and there's going to be more protests. Like September 10th is going to be a big day of protest in the States and Canada. And to tell you the truth, I think that the democratically elected leadership, the representatives of the people, will completely ignore the will of the people and do whatever the fuck they want. That's my thinking. And so I think we're fucking fucked. Okay? I mean, like, you know, sorry for being so ineloquent, you know, but yeah, I think we're fucking fucked. And I don't think that there's a way out of this. You know, I wish there were. I wish I was totally wrong. I wish I could say that, you know, I'm way black-pilled, but to tell the truth, you see, like all of my life, I realized that I've been a gambler. Okay, I've gambled and pursued different things that were of high risk, high reward. Okay, either money-wise, high reward, or satisfaction and personal fulfillment, high reward. Right, but they were all risky. And because of that, you know, you tend to realize, okay, this is realistic and this is not. This is possible and this is just a pipe dream. And so I've learned to recognize that almost like immediately, of just glancing and more or less having a pretty clear bead on the risks of some course of action or another. And I hate to be the black pill son of a bitch, but I, honest to God, do not think that we're going to get out of this hole alive. I think that there's going to be all kinds of wars and chaos before the leadership of the democracies truly respond to the people's will once again. You see, I hate to say it, but that's my thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I've been seeing on the ground in LA. I actually just.
Oh, you're in LA. Oh man, I hear it's a fucking shit show out there.
Oh, it's a complete shit show, and it's not getting better. But I did have to. I just went out last night to go see a band that I've been following over for some years, and I did have to show proof of vaccination. Now, for me, I'm vaccinated because I work in a healthcare setting, and I've been worked throughout the whole pandemic. It was something that was personal choice that I thought was beneficial for me and my family. But I'm telling you, man, you know, the mandates are coming. I've been talking to other people on the ground in LA, and one guy in particular who was shocked about the videos of the abuse coming out of abuse of the people by the police at the hands of the police coming out of Australia.
God damn, man. That place is this past week it's gotten even worse, man.
Yeah.
Dude, that place is a fucking it's like a fucking Soviet republic, motherfucker. God damn. You know, sorry.
That quickly.
Yeah.
It's insane. And I have a feeling that they're going to try the same stuff here. I mean, I can almost tell you that.
Oh yeah.
I think my other question is I get the sense just from this administration and how weak it is, and just at the federal level that they're going to try to implement this stuff from the top down, kind of like Australia style. But not every state is going to go along with it, and I can already think of at least two: Texas and Florida. And all the southern states essentially, and a couple other states, they were just not going to go along with this. So do you agree with my assessment that the government, when they see some pushback from the state and local level, they're just going to come double down and come crack down on those particular states particularly hard?
Yes, because you see, you always want to crack down the hardest on those who show the most willingness to resist you. See? That way you send the message to all the others that are on the fence. If you crack down on weak states, but you sort of like give a wide berth to the strong states, then you're sending the message that, you know, if you stand up and be tough, you'll get your way. And that's exactly what the federal government does not want to show. It doesn't want to show weakness. So, I mean, yeah, we agree that it's weak, but they don't want to show it. And especially after this Afghanistan shit show, this Afghanistan situation, you have no idea how traumatic it must have been to the Biden administration. And now they are going to be like fucking hell-bent for leather on showing how tough they are. And that will mean, like I said before, in that metaphor, you know, the guy who gets mocked at work, he comes home and beats the shit out of his wife. It's going to be like that. Like all kinds of domestic repression. I mean, domestic repression, like there's never in a million years would you imagine it happening. And the worst part, the worst part is that all these fucking baby boomers like Stephen King, who are like anti-government and shit like that, they are going to be cheering the shit on, all in the name of fighting white supremacy, which doesn't exist. They are going to be cheering the shit on, and it's just going to be fucking awful. You know, that's dude, it's so fucking depressing. Yeah, but anyway, that's the way.
Right. So,
yeah.
Well, we'll finish up school and still in school for LA for at least a year, and hopefully try to get a job out there.
Yeah. No, get the fuck out of California, man. I mean, like, I mean, how old are you, by the way?
27.
Yeah, like I was born in California. I was raised in California, and the California of today, it's like fucking light years away. It's gone. You know. California, like this land of promise where you could do whatever the fuck, and people left you alone, and people were friendly, and they didn't get to stick their nose in your business, and you know, it was like the Golden State. It really was, and that's gone. That's gone forever. You know.
Yeah.
So,
there's no, you know, and I talk to my friends and family about this, and they'll kind of look at me, and I'm like, look, there's no future as a young man, especially who's conservative or right wing. There's no future.
No way.
And I sort of like, I'm okay because I already have my moral foundation set. I know who I am. I know what I want to do. I know why I want to do it. So the sheer degeneracy and the bullshit, and the faggotry and the liberal bullshit I see all the time, and communist really doesn't affect me as much because I already know that. But I'm certainly not going to have kids and raise them here. Hell,
fuck no. And also,
I keep telling my friends that, and they don't understand it. And I'm like, well, no, it's going to get worse. There's nothing good left here, and there's maybe pockets of good if you have enough money, but that's not always
not even. A lot of people in the richer areas are even more crazy about this bullshit, about this degeneracy and decadence. And you know, you can't fight this shit. And like the girls that you meet there.
Don't even get me started. Don't even get me started on the girls. Don't even get me started. It's atrocious. It's
entitled and narcissistic and slutty and just
narcissistic. Oh my god, it's by far the worst. It's just I can't imagine a scenario in which the girls would be worse. And if there's a place, maybe New York, that's just as bad or worse. I want to avoid it like the fucking death. I want to avoid it like the Black Death.
Well, I can tell you right now that here in Ukraine, the girls are feminine and nice, you know, and no purple hair, no purple and no fat bodies. None of these, you know, I see pictures of American girls, right? And there are these enormous blobs jiggling down the street. It's so pathetic, right? You know, like here in Ukraine, it'll be like a rare day when I see a fat person. I'm not talking about like a jiggly person, like one of these Jello people. You know what I'm talking about? No, I'm talking about like a fat person who's like sort of tight. That's the worst that you'll ever see, and you'll see like one per week. You know, and I get around the city all the time. Okay, I mean, like I walk every day, and I go here and there, and so I see a lot of people, and people tend to walk around here a lot, and so you know, I see a lot of people. And I'm telling you, I'll see maybe like one fat person a day. And I'll see maybe every 10 minutes, 5 minutes. No, every 5 minutes of walking around, I'll see some girl here that's hot enough to be like a model back in the States. And the thing is, I realize that they're not hot enough to be a model. What it is that, see, they're just normal, good-looking girls. See? and like in the States, all the women are so fucking fat that a thin, good-looking girl is like, oh my God, she's a model. No, she's normal. That's the thing, man. All these fat people in the States, I just don't get it. I'm just like,
it's not just the fat, it's the mentality. I can't, I can't tell you how many times, I'm a relatively masculine dude. I have to act like a complete bitch in 90% of scenarios. I just have to. Like, I wouldn't have my job if people knew who I really, like, how I actually was or how I spoke. Normally, how I interacted with friends. I was interacting with this one girl, and she just kept giving me shit because she wanted me to like be emotional with her, and I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. And I explained to her, like, no, I just don't want to. I'm not going to share my emotions with you. I'm not going to you're not going to be a shoulder I cry on. And she just got super offended. Like, no, we're equal. I should be your emotional bedrock. And I'm like, what? No. And anytime I interact with these girls, it's weird. It's almost like they don't recognize even a somewhat masculine dude. They just don't. It's like an anomaly. And I see that in my interactions with dudes. Like, it's a rare day that I come across a normal dude, much less a guy who's got shit together, has purpose in life, is actually trying to do something.
Well, look, it's a bottom line. When the masculine dudes are gone and all you're left with are soy boys and homosexuals, that's the decadent phase of any society. And in every decadent empire, you see the exact same thing, And
I remember reading about.
Go ahead.
I remember reading about the Romans during the end of the stage of the Romans, how the barbarians would come and they would still be in their fine togas and fine dress, and they wouldn't even. They just open the gates, let them in. Yeah, take whatever you want, just don't hurt us. And
isn't that kind of happening now with the southern border?
Oh, 100%. Oh, it's 100% happening. And you can't talk about it. You can't talk about the demographic replacement. There's a clip on one of the late night, I think it was Colbert, one of the late night comedy shows, or one of them, that they said, oh yeah, the birth rates in the US, the white population in the US has dropped for the first time in history. And they started cheering for it.
Yeah, I saw that. That was on, Fallon, I think. Yeah,
Fallon. Yeah. I'm looking at this and I'm like, what? It's like clown world. It's bizarro world. There's no logic. There's no sense, and there's no backbone. There's no grit. There's no willingness to stand up and throw a punch or take a punch or fight. There's just
the thing is, see, it's not the leadership at this point. It's the people. That's the thing.
Well, in a democracy, the leadership is a reflection of the people.
Well, yeah, you're absolutely right. And so I guess the leadership that exists in the United States today is just a reflection of these of this weak people who. The thing that the thing that drives me a little bit nuts is something that I noticed a few years ago, and I've mentioned this before. That everybody in America is so obsessed with safety and security. That is it safe? That's what they ask all the time. When I was living in Chile, I've said this before, and if I'm repeating myself, I'm sorry. But years ago, there was this chat roulette. Chat roulette was like this thing where you'd randomly wind up interacting with somebody, and at first it was real novel. Some 12-year-old kid wrote up this program, and it would just you'd be like just like spin the wheel like roulette, and you'd wind up talking to some random person. It was like pretty novel. It lasted about 5 minutes, and then people forgot about it. Also, what happened was that perverts started dominating the sites. Guys who'd be on there jerking off. It was just like disgusting, and so everybody stopped using it. But while it was popular, you had the normal people on it for a while. And one time, I was in Chile at the time, and this must have been like 2007 or something like that, 2006 perhaps, I forget. And I wound up talking to some mother and daughter. The daughter was a grown woman, and pretty cute. They were in Washington State. And we got to talking, and they asked me where I was. I said I was in Chile. And the first thing they asked is it safe? And I'm like, dude, it's just a regular country. And that was the obsession. Is it safe? And that struck me, that question. struck me so hard, that everything in the United States is the risk has been torqued down so much that people have become completely obsessed with safety. And if there's even the tiniest risk, they have to go overboard with safety measures that are impossible to achieve in order to eliminate this tiny sliver. What?
It's like the mother instinct or the maternal instinct.
Yeah.
On overdrive.
Yes, it is. Yes,
It's
exactly.
It's pervasive. I know I deal. I have a younger nephew, and I deal with them, and I just look at him when I'm like, kid, like, oh my god, you need to go out there and do something dangerous, because that's, especially as a young man, that's how you grow. That's how you become. That's how you mature from a boy into a man. Is you go push yourself, you find your limits.
Yeah, but none of the kids get pushed. None of the kids get pushed. And look, it's an understandable impulse that the women, when they see their child being pushed, they get nervous and they don't like it. But it's the responsibility of the father to push the kid forward so that he understands his own limitations and how he rubs up against the world. But since so many children grow up with a single mother, the mother is the one who teaches them all the values, and the values are feminine, and they're focused on safety and security and being like a nice guy.
Oh yeah. I know all about it. I came from a single mother household, and it took me years of deprogramming and going to do dangerous stuff and actively seeking out mentors or just learning how to be masculine. It wasn't an easy process. It took. I'm still doing it now, and it takes years of trial and error. It's just butting your head up against a wall until you get it right.
Well, yeah, but the thing is, you only grow by failing. You never grow by succeeding. Success never teaches you shit. It's failure. And the more failure you have, especially when you're young, the better, because you'll be able to understand yourself better, your strengths and your weaknesses. And once you understand yourself better, you'll be able to handle bigger challenges and be successful at them. But you need that period of failure. But mothers don't like to see their kids fail. I mean, it's not the fault of the mothers. It's not like the mothers are sitting around rubbing their hands together and saying, how can I fuck up my kid? It's not that. It's just that their innate nature of being very conservative and protective of their children leads to outcomes where the child is weak and pathetic. And now we're seeing it. Okay, Robert, this is a black-pilled conversation as fuck. So I'm gonna kick you out of here.
No, it's all good. Thank you very much, Coach.
No, it's my pleasure, man. You take it easy, okay? And chin up.
Take care. Thank you.
Okay, and I'm going to wind this down. Oops, there we go. Let me fix this here so I can give you some final words. I'm sorry you guys can't see me, but I can't seem to plug my thing back in, my camera back in, without having to restart the program, and that would just fuck everything up. So you'll just have to see my avatar. Look, if you want to die on a hill, this is it. The vaccine passports, you want to die on this hill. And specifically for the reason I, went over and over about. It is taking away your natural rights and depositing your rights into the hands of the government. And the government gets to decide if you have rights or not, based on whether or not you comply with its diktats. This is the hill to die on. If you truly value your freedoms in whatever country you're living in, you want to make sure that they don't implement any kind of vaccine passport, and you want to ensure that your freedoms remain yours and not in the hands of the government. When the government has rights, your rights, they will abuse you with impunity, and it will become more and more abusive. And as you resist, they'll repress you even more. And the way things are going, it's going to wind up totalitarian. And here's something that might be even more depressing. I'm sure you would agree that even though I'm pretty smart, Aristotle and Plato are smarter than me, or were smarter than me. Yeah, I don't think that I have to convince you otherwise. And these very, very smart philosophers, both of them came to the conclusion that in a democracy inevitably leads to tyranny. Inevitably. It inevitably leads to a tyrannical regime where the state takes over all of the rights of the people and tells people how to live. You have to understand that the American democratic experiment is not normal. It really is exceptional. And because of historical accidents regarding the Second World War, the United States wound up being one of the dominant powers, worldwide powers. It was accidental, but it's what happened. And because the United States was a democracy, it imposed its democratic regime on all the European states it had conquered, because that's what happened. It conquered those countries, and it imposed democracies on them. And it ruled the world and created this very pacific world for a long time. But the American empire is ending, and it's devolving into totalitarianism. And by extension, all the little democratic regimes that it imposed in Germany, France, the Netherlands, Japan, South Korea, they're all going in the same direction, totalitarian. So you have to understand what's going on, the historical process. And by citing Plato and Aristotle, two guys who I'm sure you agree were a lot smarter than me, I'm telling you, this road is likely, you can't go back on this road. There could be some event, some magical event, some incredible turn of luck that we all go back to the good old days. But you can't, bank on luck like that, okay? That kind of extraordinary luck that, only children bank on that kind of luck. If you're an adult, if you're a man, you got to look at what you got. And you have to understand that the life that we led before 2020 is gone forever, okay? And so you have to keep an open mind, keep your eyes wide open, your mouth firmly shut, so that you don't get into trouble with the authorities, the totalitarian authorities. Make the moves that you have to make so that you can hold on to your health and your principles and understand what's coming. And if you want to fight, this is worth fighting for. There are a lot of people on the left, a lot of communists who are against the vaccine passports too, for reasons of their own. It doesn't really matter. And so you can make common cause with them. But this shit, you wanna kill it. You want to make sure that it doesn't happen to where you are, because if you let it happen in your country, you will be a slave to your government. Okay? Because that's the whole point of these vaccine passports, to turn you into a slave. This is CRP. Thanks very much for listening, and I'll catch you next time.